Half a day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the USDA Rural Development Public-Private Philanthropic Partnerships, a conversation on USDA Rural Development's role as a partner for prosperity in the Western Pacific. And for those of us joining us online, Tiro, Ali, Kasalelia, Mogathin, and Rananim. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the following: the Honorable Lourdes Yanguerrero y Mega Hagaguahan, the Honorable James Moylan, Congressman, U.S. House of Representatives, Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez, President, University of Guam, Mr. Joaquin Toro, Administrator of the Rural Housing Service, Mr. Chris Kanazawa, State Director, Hawaii, Western Pacific, and American Samoa, USDA Rural Development, Speaker Therese Terlahi of the Guam Legislature, Senator Amanda Shelton of the Guam Legislature, and joining us virtually, Senator Joseph San Augustine of the Guam Legislature. At this time, it is my honor to introduce Governor Lilian Guerrero for her remarks.
Buenas and half a day. Thank you very much. Wow, can we say a little bit more energetic? Half a day? Yay, all right. It's my pleasure to be part of today's great, I think, meeting with our private public partnerships and throughout the Western region. I want to personally thank Joe Diego. You know, Joe has been a very strong leader in this area of USDA rural housing. I think Joe said he's been here now for 29 years. And we see a lot of Joe's results out here in the community. And of course, Chris Kanazawa, who is, as they mentioned, the State Director of Hawaii, our Western Pacific and American Samoa. Thank you for hosting us today, and hopefully we'll have some really good conversations among us. I'd also like to especially welcome Joaquin Altaro, who's the administrator of the Rural Housing Service, and I hope this isn't your last time here. We welcome you always. You have been with our community for over 30 years, supporting the growth of affordable housing and finding ways to promote our economic prosperity among many of our minority communities. Just as our administration has also prioritized building housing in this new era for our prosperity of Guam. We have this shared vision based on partnership that have been made possible so far. And these partnerships have turned a lot of our dreams, a lot of our people's desire for homes into reality. For example, just want to name off a few things here because it's very significant to have that kind of a framework. So since 2019, we have noted 245 families realizing their dreams of becoming first-time home owners through various loan programs. These loan programs help enhance affordable housing opportunities on our island. But USDA Rural Development's reach doesn't just stop there. It supported our island's dedication to enhancing education through its community facilities program, which has assisted in the construction of various facilities on the University of Guam, as Anita probably will mention, and of course our Guam Community College campuses. This very building that we are in, I think, was also supported by USDA loan. This same program has enhanced our island's public safety abilities by supporting also our crime lab, promoted the spirit of Inafamali with our communities by supporting the building of a multi-purpose building over at the Chalampago Order Municipal Planning Council, and has assisted in ensuring our visitors feel the Hafaday spirit through more than $11 million worth of funding for the airport, for our airport international's air conditioning. So through these many projects, you see that it enhanced community, it has enhanced affordability of housing, it has brought communities together by focusing on multi-purpose community centers. And so I just want to say, on behalf of the people of Guam, we are so very fortunate to be able to have this great partnership with our federal government, our state director, and we look forward to many, many more things because, as you all know, our economy is very strong. We have a bright future ahead of us, and we need to continue working in public-private partnerships to make sure that we continue with our economic prosperity, and also to, again, like I said, have many of our island people realize their dreams of a home. So Sidus Masi for your attention to our island. I know DC is such a very complicated place, and they'll probably, your attention is everybody's competing for your attention, but I hope that we are the first on your list of priorities. Sidus Masi, and welcome again to Guam, and welcome, and look forward to some great discussions. Sidus Masi.
Thank you so much, Governor. At this time, it is my honor to introduce the Honorable James Moylan, Congressman, U.S. House of Representatives.
Good morning. I believe it's morning. I just arrived last night, so I'm sure it is. And just like Mr. Joaquin here, Atoro, thank you very much for making the time and coming all the way out from DC for us. I especially want to welcome all you folks that came on out to have an explanation of all these different programs that we have for housing and energy to help the people of Guam. But I really want to thank Mr. Joe Diego here for bringing this to our office attention. Mr. Diego pointed out a lot of things that are very helpful for the island, and we just need to get together to understand them more. So from that point, we did the invitation on out to our Hawaii representatives, and I want to thank also Mr. Chris Kanazawa for making the trip on out and bringing your team too to help explain what the island of Guam has to benefit and the long-range programs that we have for the betterment of the island. We have a lot of things going on in the Indo-PACOM area that are crucial to our nation's security and crucial to our island community and the safety of Guam. But more importantly, we have to take care of the peace and the people of Guam, and that comes with housing and energy opportunities that we can take advantage of by simply completing the application and hopefully getting those applications approved a lot quicker and with more education, what we have with these programs here today. So thank you, Mr. Kanazawa, for bringing yourself and your team on out to greet us. There is so much we can do really for the island, and working closely with our senators as well that we're looking at doing to express to the federal government as one team, one Guam approach. And Governor Leon Guerrero, I want to thank you very much for working together. I think our partnership shows to the federal government that we have one voice. And with that one voice, we can be heard loud and clear. The attention is put more than ever to the island of Guam than has ever done before. Nation security is one thing, but taking care of the people of Guam is most important. So I thank you, Governor Leon Guerrero, for working closely with us. Dr. Anita, thank you for facilitating this opportunity here. Many of us have been your students, from senators to Congress as well. So I'm very happy that the education of Guam is going in the direction that creates leadership that can help direct our island to a safer and a happier place by providing with the USDA partnerships, building homes, taking care of the people of Guam as well. For our director here from DC, you took a long trip there, Joaquin Atoro. You did, right? You understand the distance that we had to, the communications that has to be worked out with DC, the difference in time zones that we had to work out together, getting our supplies, getting our people, getting our training, getting these opportunities to the people of Guam is so important. With your team from Hawaii and with Joe Diego here, we can get that done. I think there's a lot more we can do for our team here on Guam to help them grow so that we can handle our issues here directly and work with Hawaii, but really to focus on our island needs. So I'll be working with your office for assistance and manpower and funding, and I'll be sure to push that in Congress as well, of what we can do better to help support you. With that in mind, I'm just saying I'm looking very forward to what our discussions will be today. I'm looking forward to working with this team here. I'm really grateful for all of you that showed up today to work together for a better island of Guam. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Congressman. At this time, I introduce Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez, 12th President, University of Guam.
Manana Sijus, Hapaday, aloha to all of you, friends of our community. Welcome to your home. And I call it home because this particular facility was just a dream almost 20 years ago, approximately 18 years ago, thanks to the ingenuity of friends across our community. I want to highlight Mr. Joe Diego, who's been part of that journey, Carlos Camacho, who's just a student at the time and had the wherewithal to leverage partners from across government, private, and of course with our institution in order to arrive at a very interesting, diverse financial model in order to ensure that we have the funding to bring this particular building into fruition. And I just want to highlight how very well utilized this facility is. It has seen among our local government entities, nonprofits, educational partners, University of Guam students. We've had the CIA, the FBI, TSA. We've had Naval Facilities Marianas recruiting summer interns. We've had programs relating to developmental disabilities. As you can see, this facility has had a major multi-purpose use in terms of being able to support our community at large. The University of Guam, in its quest to deliver public value, its strategic intent really is to transform lives and advance the communities in which we live, work, and play in. I like to basically use the operative word of philanthropy, not just in terms of the monetary sense, but also philanthropic hearts, sweat equity, minds that come together within this ecosystem of support to assess what else can we leverage, who else can we leverage to make facilities possible. USDA Rural Development has invested approximately $40 million into our campus. And as you drove into the main drive, you saw progress in action. You've got the School of Engineering facility. You also have the Dr. Licio Tan Student Success Center. We do not have a cafeteria on campus. That particular facility was demolished, but we're looking forward to the ribbon cutting ceremony of both facilities next year. So on behalf of our grateful campus and community, I want to extend a Sindankala and Masi. Thank you very much for your confidence and the investment that has come along with that. There also has been partial investment into the University of Guam Cabo Fieldhouse. And we're also very grateful for the other investments that have come into the university. We're looking forward to more opportunities in order to leverage that partnership together. So as we think about everyone across the room. These are no strangers to our institution. These we call our partners to our island. And I want to especially extend a heartfelt gratitude to Governor Lulian Guerrero, who helped us with bridge funding in order to allow us to have the funds necessary to break ground on the two facilities. So thank you very much, Governor. And thank you very much to our honorable speaker. The Guam legislature has also been instrumental in ensuring that we had the funds. If it were not for the Guam legislature, we would not have met the bulk of the annual debt service for this facility. And so I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to your colleagues from those many past years, and of course, for our current legislature for continuing to support that. So I hope everyone has a wonderful time. We look forward to more partnerships and more discussions throughout the morning. Sijusmasi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Enriquez. At this time, it is my honor to introduce you to Mr. Joaquin Arturo, Administrator of the Rural Housing Service.
I could try without the microphone. Is this, oh, hey. Well, good morning, everyone. I feel very comfortable being here this morning. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to represent the Biden-Harris administration and to be with all of you here today. I would also like to thank and acknowledge our State Director for Hawaii, Chris Kanazawa, and our Area Director, Senor Joe Diego, who has been recognized many times, and really appreciate the hard work that you do. And of course, the rest of our very hardworking rural development staff joining us today. You know, I'm very proud of the work that we're doing at USDA's Rural Housing Service to help realize President Biden's Investing in America agenda to grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Investing in America means investing in all of America and leaving no community behind. That is why the Biden-Harris administration and USDA's rural development are making record investments in our rural communities to ensure everyone in this country has a path to success. Additionally, very proud of rural development that has been in Guam since the 1970s, averaging about $30 million in investments annually. And we probably can all agree, like the congressman said, that we still have a lot of work to do. If I may take a moment to really talk about the Biden administration's commitment to the Pacific Islands and the US territories. At the US Pacific Islands Forum Summit meeting at the White House in September last year, President Biden renewed our commitment to enhancing our partnership with the Pacific Islands and the respective governments to achieve our shared vision for a resilient Pacific region of peace, harmony, security, social inclusion, and prosperity, where individuals can reach their potential and the environment can thrive and the democracy can flourish. The Biden administration remains committed to the foundation of our approach to the Pacific, remaining strong and advocating for productive bilateral and regional collaboration with the Pacific Islands, while listening and responding to Pacific priorities. Our priorities are informed by those outlined in the 2050 Strategy for the Blue Pacific Continent and in support of the Pacific Regional Architecture led by the Pacific Islands Forum. And lastly, also here to really celebrate the signing of the new compact agreement with the FES. So if I may just take a quick moment for the personal story, is, you know, this being here is very, very personal to me. My father, born and raised in Puerto Rico, you could just imagine kind of the familiarity that I have here being in Guam. And then as a banker, and I was just mentioning to the governor the other day that last weekend I turned 50 years old. And I don't know how many either are about to be there or have been there. When you hit those 30 or 40 or 50, you take some time to do a little bit of a personal realization of where are you and what's going on. And you could imagine being born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, of all places. Anybody been to Milwaukee or Wisconsin? Whoa, that's a first. In most cases, when I ask people if they've been to Wisconsin, it's crickets. And so I really appreciate it. But imagine being a banker, 33 years, and being here with you all, and being a son to a Puerto Rican gentleman that was on the islands. It's just an absolute privilege in here. But I understand the responsibility that I have here. I'm here to listen and learn, but I'm also here to be honest with you with the fact that we have a lot of work to do. But this being here is, and my personal story is what brought me to lead the Rural Housing Service and what ultimately led me to be here in Guam. I'm here with Chris, Joe, and the rest of the USDA team to better understand how we can better partner and improve the delivery of our program and resources. Very important. I've traveled through many places and spaces through rural America. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you all have Google Maps on your phone, but it follows you. I don't know if that's a surprise at all. And on there, the other day I was going through it. I've been to or through 522 cities in the nation. And so, places that have been very hard to get, places that face a number of challenges, but there was no place harder to get than Guam, where America begins its day. And we should recognize that. One of my priorities is really for people to understand better that at USDA, rural development exists, even more importantly, that the Rural Housing Service exists. So I just want to take a couple minutes here to give you a little bit of an overview about what is the Rural Housing Service and what do we do. Really important. A little bit later when we have the panel, they're going to talk about real world applications, what I think is equally as important. So you can see, oh, okay, this is what you do, but this is how it's done, which is very important for us. And so at the Rural Housing Service, we offer a variety of programs to purchase housing, as well as programs to build or improve affordable housing and essential community facilities in rural areas. We offer loans, loan guarantees for single and multifamily housing, child care centers, fire and police stations, hospitals, libraries, nursing homes, schools, first responder vehicles, equipment, and housing for farm laborers, and so much more. We also provide technical assistance loans and grants in partnership with nonprofit organizations, any nonprofit organizations in the room today, or even virtually, Indian tribes, state and federal government agencies, and local communities. In fiscal FY23, our year, USDA obligated roughly 65,500 loans, loan guarantees, and grants totaling about $10.6 billion, and provided over $1.5 billion in rental assistance to approximately 228,000 rural renters. There's three arms to the Rural Housing Service: single family, multifamily, and then our community facilities. And I have the absolute privilege of having that under my leadership and purview. And so a quick overview of the single family housing. Our single family housing program provides a zero down payment loans to enable very low and moderate income households in eligible rural areas to achieve homeownership through our direct loan and through our guaranteed loan program. Our section 502, so that's kind of the names of our programs, are in the 500 series, kind of the bad channels on the cable, it's 502. Our section 502 direct home loan enables low or very low income households to purchase or build a home in eligible rural areas with no money down. Our section 502 guaranteed loan program is a no down payment loan guaranteed by USDA and funded by our network of 1,700 approved lenders. Additionally, and I know this is very important to some of the territories, is SFH, our single family program, provides an array of affordable financing opportunities for home purchase, but repair. And so this is made possible through our Section 504 repair program, which helps lower income homeowners to repair and improve or modernize their home. Very important program to our region. On the multifamily housing overview, our multifamily housing program assists rural property owners through loans, loan guarantees, and grants that enable owners to develop and rehabilitate properties. Our multifamily housing program has the potential to affect many populations across rural America, including low income, elderly, disabled individuals, families, and domestic farm laborers. So our portfolio across the nation and our territories is 400,000 units, and they provide critical source of affordable housing for rural low-income residents. So here's a little bit of the demographic of who's living within our multifamily units. The average household income is about $15,000 a year. Imagine having that type of an income and having to be able to live safely and affordably. The average age is around 65. 65% of our of our portfolio is either elderly or disabled, and 70% are female-headed households. So those that live within our multifamily apartments are a very vulnerable population, and we must work very hard to work to protect them. As a matter of fact, Joe Diego gave me a tour of one of those here in Guam, and so thank you for the opportunity to actually see one of the locations here. And then lastly, but not least, is our community facilities. And it was just spoken to by our doctor, the fact of the impact here. And so our community facilities programs offers direct loans, loan guarantees, and grants to develop or improve essential public services and facilities in rural communities up to 20,000 residents. Our amenities help increase the competitiveness of rural communities in attracting and retaining businesses, public bodies, nonprofit organizations, and federally recognized American Indian tribes can use the funds to construct, expand, and improve facilities. The Community Facilities Program can fund over 100 types of rural facilities, and you heard me speak to some of those earlier. And so please know we look to all of you to understand what your communities need, and please bring those projects to us so that we can help address those needs with you. And so as I wrap up remarks today, I know the information that you will be learning is really important. I think there's only one additional topic or one additional pressing issue that is probably more important than what we're talking about today is, and that's word on the street is Donkey Village is opening really soon here. Look at everybody's like, yeah. So I really need you guys to concentrate today. We're going to be talking about really important things. We'll worry about Donkey Village another day. But we really appreciate, again, you being here. And as the congressman said, there's a lot more that we can do. And I really appreciate your partnership and your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arturo. And I just want to recognize that there are currently more than 90 individuals attending today's event, whether it be in person and virtual. And our virtual attendees include individuals from Palau, Ponape, Yap, and Chuuk today, as well as from Saipan. So we have a big crowd attending. At this time, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Chris Kanazawa, State Director for the Hawaii, Western Pacific, and American Samoa USDA Rural Development.
Thank you. Afade and aloha. Governor Leon Guerrero, Congressman Moylan, Dr. Enriquez, thank you for your remarks and for the welcome. It's hard to believe that, I served under the Obama administration in the same position, and it's hard to believe that it's the last time I was here in official business was in 2016. So it's really nice to be back in Guam. I would also like to say that I'm extremely pleased that I was able to be accompanied by Administrator Arturo. Being in Hawaii, serving Hawaii in the Western Pacific, it's always difficult to try to explain to Washington, D.C. about some of the challenges we face. I mean, we all have unique challenges. And so to have people, leadership from DC come to the Western Pacific is extremely important because they can hear about it, but once they're here, they can actually see the real challenges. So I appreciate the administrator for taking the time to come out here. He understands the logistics at a minimum. As Congressman Moylan says, we have time zones. My sob story is my days can start at 4 a.m. talking to Washington, D.C. and end at 9 o'clock at night talking to Joe Diego. And my day starts on Sunday, right? So But we all understand the challenges. I mean, we're a unique family because we all understand island life, but we understand the challenges of climate change, transportation, communication, access to health and community services. But I'm not here to really dwell on the challenges, but more on how we address those. And I came across a statement put out by the American Progress Organization, which said the goal should be to ensure geography is not destiny. And I think that's so important for island communities, that it's really, we should not be defined because we're in isolated communities of islands communities. There are a number of ways that we can address and confront these challenges and turn them into creating sustainable communities. And so, there was a study put out by Purdue University that talks about community capital. And I think community capital exists in all urban, rural communities in varying degrees, but they all exist. And it really is up to the community to decide how we invest in this community capital, which is really a key component for us to build sustainable communities. And within this community capital, it really talks about investment in human capital, which is investment in our people, which creates capacity building, skill sets, technical skills, and really provides the leadership for our communities. And investments in education, community-based knowledge, resources are important to support the human capital. Investment in our environmental capital is important to protect our ecosystems, because these provide the natural resources that we use for agriculture, to watersheds, in addition to dealing with climate change issues. The community, we need to invest in cultural and social capital. This is really the glue that bonds our communities. And for cultural capital, it really talks about, the connecting communities. And what we find in island communities in particular, there is a very enriched cultural sense for island communities. And it's really this culture that influences how we invest and what we invest in community capital. In addition, social capital also connects communities, and they provide the health and community services through nonprofit organizations, public and private foundations, philanthropic interests, and other community serving organizations all serve as a conduit in investment in social capital. Infrastructure capital investments provide the brick and mortar for our communities. This is where we provide, as administrator said, schools, libraries, hospitals, roads, utilities, and other community facilities. I mean, this essentially is the backbone infrastructure to support our communities. There's a need to invest in the financial capital, which really supports financial and business resources to create wealth, to stimulate economic development that ultimately provides community prosperity. And finally, investment in our political capital. And this is an investment in community and government leadership and policymakers who in turn promote through legislation and policies investment in community capital. So, I just wanted to share that with you to give you a framework as we listen to and learn about the resources of rural development. There is no one more important element in community capital. It's a holistic approach. It's a multi-pronged approach that we have to invest in all of these. And it's important that disproportionate investments in any one could put at risk other sectors of the community capital. So it's important that we approach this as a holistic approach. It involves policymakers, it involves private and public organizations, and it also includes the community to make these decisions on how we invest to support this capital. Rural development's mission is to uh, improve the quality of life and increase economic opportunities for rural America. And that really speaks to investing in this community capital. So, I think the important thing really for this session, my goal is really to hear your input. I mean, you will hear some of the success stories that we have through our programs, but there's also going to be a question and answer period. And I think that's really important because ultimately what we would like for you to do is, in your own words, tell us what your needs are. Rural development and our staff will then put together a custom program, a menu of programs to meet those needs. So I want to thank you all for your attendance. I think that there's hopefully these discussions will stimulate more questions, but it also hopefully gives you a resource that you can use. So again, I want to thank you all. I do want to recognize Dr. Enriquez and the University of Guam for the generosity in making this wonderful space available to us. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Amanda Bloss, wherever she is. She was awesome in terms of putting together the invitations, getting this virtual. So thank you, Amanda, so much for you and your team. So I hope this is a worthwhile event for you. I look forward. Our people will be around after the session if you have any other questions. So thank you. Aloha. Shizu samashi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kanazawa. And before we continue the program, I do want to recognize the Governor of Yap, Honorable Charles Cheng, who is currently on our virtual Zoom. So Mogathin, Governor, and thank you for joining us. We're a little ahead of schedule. So before we go on to the Guam presentation, we did want to open up to any questions that you may have for our initial speakers. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so at this time, it is my honor to introduce the Administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority, Ms. Melanie Mendiola.
Hafide, Mananasitus, everyone. Hafide. So I think most everyone here is from Guam, and I'm supposed to do a presentation on Guam. So those of you who already know what I'm going to talk about, you can just, break out your phones, check your messages. I won't feel too bad, and then you won't judge me based on the content of what I'm about to tell these folks from off island. Hafide, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Governor, Madam Speaker, those joining us on Zoom, especially Governor Chen, Mr. Congressman, and Madam President Anita. Again, my name is Melanie. Everybody calls me Mel. And I was thinking as these guys were presenting, I said, their names, they're all, well, I don't know if you noticed this, but Guam is a kind of a casual culture, right? We dress, this is not DC, we don't wear suits, right? If you wear suits, everybody knows you're not from here. We're a casual culture, and when we talk to each other, a lot of times we use terms of endearment like prima, prim, cousin, things like that, right? And so I was thinking, I was looking at your names, and the name Joaquin is actually very near and dear to my heart. It's the name of my grandpa, and we called him Kinney. Do you have a nickname? Joaquin? Okay, so my grandpa, we called him Kinney. I live on Kinney's Drive. He owned a restaurant for a long time called Kinney's Cafe. Joaquin is also very close to the governor's heart. I don't know if she told you her son's name is Joaquin, but I didn't want our other guests to feel left out. So Director Kanazawa, Chris, the name for Chris, if you were Tsumoru, we call you Bobat. Bobat. So we have Chris, Bobat, we have Kin, right? And in the back, we have Richard, Buddy, Nichols. And the nickname for Richard in Chamorro is, in Spanish, it would be Ricotdu, right? So we'd call you Cutdu. Not to be confused, if you go to Mezcla, which is the name of a local restaurant, there's also like a local soup, like a chicken soup. It's called kadu. Was not named after the guy, like, you know, it's not like Grandma Betty's apple pie. That's not why it's called kadu. It's just that's what it's called. It's soup. In any case, so I think we're all more comfortable now that we have Bobat, kadu, and Kinney in the room. Yes? Okay. And they'll remember Guam because of this conversation. Am I right? That's what's most important. All right. So now as I carry on, I believe the reason Mr. Diego, who I call Mr. Diego, asked me to present today was basically to help to educate our guests from off island about Guam's economy. And of course, you know, in there, I do want to plug my own agency, the Guam Economic Development Authority, and talk about all the good things that we do as well. So if you'll bear with me for a few minutes while we do that. All right. Point two. Okay, at the Guam Economic Development Authority, our mission and vision is to develop a sound and sustainable economy through innovative programs that preserve and promote local culture, economic opportunities, and quality of life. Our vision is to realize a robust third industry. So right now, Guam gets much of its support from the federal government through the Department of Defense, the tourism industry, and we'd like to be able to stand up a third industry in the near term, and diverse small business community where the economy supports a highly affordable quality of life for the people of Guam. When I first started at the Guam Economic Development Authority, appointed by Governor Leon Guerrero, she gave me 3 mandates. She said, Mel, I won't do it in my governor voice, but that's for later. But Governor said, Mel, I want you to help us clean up the government of Guam finances. Help us we had a historically low interest rate environment. Help us utilize that to our best advantage to save money for the people of Guam. Let's diversify our economy and let's make it easier to do business in Guam. Of the 3, the hardest one to do is to make it easier to do business in Guam, in part because there's quite a bit of bureaucracy that's evolved over the years. Not too different than the federal government, I'm sure. So in the last several years, we've, in the way of cleaning up government finances, we've refinanced with the help of the Guam legislature over $100 million and realized over $100 million in bond savings to the people of Guam in basically the low interest rate environment of before. Now we're in challenging times, but we continue to be able to get good pricing out in the bond market. We've been awarded over $3 million in grants towards aquaculture, transshipment, additive manufacturing, and over $150 million. We're working with our fellow agencies in future projects. GITA runs the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is a treasury program. And we also do some work with the BEAD program with the broadband team as well. Doing business in Guam, of course, improving access to capital, organically helping to grow our local small businesses, encouraging legislation that promotes investment in our island, and of course, doing anything we can to support Governor Leon Guerrero's executive order to reform government procedures, basically to try to remove some of the bureaucracy. We also are very, very committed to promoting sustainable practices. So one of the qualifying certificates, so GITA runs, in addition to going out and doing all the borrowing on behalf of the government of Guam, so we're the central financial manager. So if a government agency says, hey, Mel, I want to go get a USDA loan, they come to me, and then we send you the email that says, these guys want a USDA loan, right? So we're the central financial manager for the government of Guam. In addition to that, we run all of the tax incentive programs. So in most of the other states and jurisdictions, you have like I believe it's the treasurer's office that handles the borrowing, or the actual municipal agency like the waterworks, or the city county treasurer's office that handle the borrowing. We handle all of that for the government of Guam. We also handle the tax incentive programs, which are normally run out of an economic development authority, such as GITA. So we've got a lot on our plate. You know, we affectionately call GITA Guam Everything and the Kitchen Sink Development Authority. But it's okay, you know, I'm still young, not 50 yet. Helping agents and helping our fellow, our brother and sister agencies in the government of Guam. Governor Leon Guerrero pushed out a number of small business pandemic grant programs through the use of CARES, ARPA, legislative appropriation, and other and other pots of funding. And I believe we are at about 100 and 20, 30, 20, 40, 50, 102, 122. 200, over 200 million, over 200 million in federal funding that's gone out since the onset of the pandemic. Most significant, most recently, the Programan Pinilan. Programan Pinilan is our childcare program, which is a multifaceted program to support daycares, to support daycare workers. It's really to get folks back into the workplace. We also reset the qualification threshold for the community development for the block grants. So we went from something like, I think we had 350 families that were qualified for the block grant when we started in 2022. Now it's like 1,700 families qualified for the block grant as of our most recent count. And LEAP 2, which was done in conjunction with the Guam legislature, where we put ARPA funds and the Guam legislature and local funds together to push out aid to our continuing to our tourism industry, which is continuing to recover. Over 2,500 businesses have received small business grants during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 30 new ventures. We have an MOU with the Guam Unique Merchandise and Art, GUMA. Monica, are you here? Raise your hand. Yes. So GUMA provides incubator services to local startups and small businesses. So you have an idea. Usually what happens is if you have an idea to start a small business, you call me at Gita, and then I say, you know who you should really call? You call Monica, because I'm too busy doing, everything but the kitchen sink. But I'm just joking. I don't say I'm too busy. I just say, oh, you know who's really good at this? Monica. And so we've seeded more than 30 new ventures via the Guam Unique Merchandise and Art Program. 10 businesses have gone abroad on export missions through WUSADA, Western U.S. Agriculture Trade Association, that is USDA funded. Over 150 people participated and are taking the LEAP webinar, sponsored in part under the SBA State Trade and Export Program, STEP. Over 200 nonprofits have been supported through our tax benefit programs, as well as Pinilan. We've seen 11 or so additional childcare facilities open, and we've seen, again, working families, just more broad use of our vouchers. And then I was going to talk about our financials, but never mind, because we don't care about that, right? We don't care about. I'm a good financial manager, though. I told my board, I'm going to turn this agency into a sovereign country by the time I leave. We'll be able to support ourselves. But anyways, that's for another, again, later. Okay, so now let's get to the skinny of it, how to really look at our economy, right? And it's really, this is a complicated picture. And I tell you why. It's a complicated picture because not only are we dealing in this build-up environment, but we're also dealing in a pandemic environment or a post-pandemic environment where the states and territories received these windfalls of money that still continue to show their effects on the economy, right? So now how does one plan forward? Thank you so much. How does one look forward the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years when you say, at some point in time, the pandemic, the federal funding is going to slow down. And at some point in time, the military buildup will kind of slow down. Where do we go from there, right? So of course, for me, you always have to look at what the numbers tell us, right? And where can we go from there? What kind of story? What kind of story did the numbers speak? How do they speak to me? And from there, how can I go out and advocate for the people of Guam? So the gross domestic product, GDP. GDP is made up of consumption, right? So this is our own consumption, consumer expenditures, government expenditures, private sector investment expenditures, and net exports. And our exports are tourism, so the things that are consumed by our tourists, less the amount that we import, right? All right, so our GDP for 2022, we're trailing the United States always, all the territories always have trailed the states by about a year. So the most recent we have is for 2022, where we see a positive 5.1 change, continued recovery from the buildup. The primary contributor to our positive territory of GDP is the recovery of tourism towards pre-pandemic numbers. We're not quite there yet. We're definitely not out of the woods. Japan is still slow to recover, but we're getting there, and that is reflected in the GDP. right? 5.1. What's interesting about the GDP is we actually outpaced the 50 states and territories. So if you look at the slide from the Bureau of Economic Analysis that puts out our GDP, and you look at how fast, you know, Texas grew by 3% and this place grew by whatever, it's Guam and then it's Florida below us at like 4. I was like, what? Now, mind you, 5% for us, like a couple $100 million, you know, 2% movement for us, 3% is like a couple $100 million. 2-3% movement for them is like bazillions of dollars, right? Nevertheless, we like our little victories, right? I'm especially happy that we beat Hawaii. Visitor arrivals, just to give you some context, at the absolute bottom of the pandemic, when Guam was closed to flights coming in, we received 61,000 visitors. And by visitors, we primarily mean military movement in and out of our hotels. And healthcare professionals, et cetera. At the height of tourism pre-pandemic, 2019, we were receiving about 1.6. We're back at 2023 at 602,000, and I think currently we're at about 800,000. So we continue to make steady progress towards improvement. Our unemployment rate, actually no, let's go to sales volume and building and construction permits, because I think these are the two most critical with regard to housing. With regard to housing, sales volume has declined and building and construction permits have also declined. Now, first, real estate sales volume, much of the evidence points to the interest rates being the primary function of the real estate sales volume being somewhat down. In addition, lack of inventory and not being able to find adequate priced homes. And another contributor to this, let me see, is supply of labor, supply of materials, and the slowness of those movements, right? And those, so right now, all of the H-2B visa holders, there's about 5,000 of them on our island. H-2B visa holders are primarily doing work inside the fence. So they're all doing DoD projects, and that's crowding out our most vulnerable populations, as you can imagine. Building and construction permits, we see this slow down, but this is actually, to me, this is very close to normal pre-pandemic numbers, because if you can imagine during the pandemic, there was a lot of, there was some delay. I remember, we all remember in the news, we read about supply chain delays and things like that. And so there was kind of this pent up demand that really started to come to fruition in 21, 22. And so now we're kind of heading back into normal territory. Now, looking at our unemployment rates, Guam is at 4.1, which is quite good relative to the national unemployment average, with a labor force of about 72,000. Not in the labor force has pretty much been steady for the last 50 or so years as relative to the population size. And Guam's labor workforce, Guam's labor workforce has been pretty steady. It's been between 46,000 and 52,000, depending on the time of year and reporting. Local government workforce has shrunk, or is about the same, 12,040. There was a point in time, I think in 2022, that it was slightly higher. This is probably a lot of temporary hiring as a result of the pandemic or for pandemic related aid, right? And let's see, the federal government, by contrast, has increased their workforce by about 200. All right, I spent a lot of time on that slide, but you know, this is my thing. I really like that part. Okay, CPI, this is the stuff that we're all concerned. This is the stuff that hits us in the pocket, right? This is stuff that makes our purses lighter and stresses me out at night. CPI rose 25% from 2019 to 2023. Inflation in Guam was not unlike that of the United States. Food rose 26%, not a surprise. We were also paying $10 for a dozen eggs. It was kind of a bummer. Did encourage the silver lining was it did encourage local farmers and local production of eggs, which was fantastic. Housing rose about 21%. Medical care, more concerning to me, medical care rose 36% in the last 4 years alone. And it's not because we just need better facilities because people are just flying off island to seek medical care. what tells an interesting story is our private sector employment, and this is what helps us determine the course of events moving forward, right? When it comes to agriculture, agriculture is relatively steady, but you see construction from 2000, if you can read this, I know it's a little small, 2015, we had about 6,700 construction workers. Now we have 11,250. But actually, I'd like you to look at March of 2019. This is when the H-2B visas were absolutely dried up. There were none. Okay. So now if you think about the 5,000 or so H-2Bs who are counted in our employment numbers, plus 11,000, it looks to me like the construction workforce, the organic construction workforce has grown very little, whereas the H-2B force has augmented that workforce. And what you find in other sectors is you find some growing. Retail trade is the other one that I was interested in, because retail trade, that's like your stores like Don Don Donkey, right? And all these other stores in Tumon and Tamuning area, the mall, etc. You saw at the height of tourism, there are almost 14,000 workers, and now they're down at 12,000. Now, part of me also thinks, though, that there's more AI going into, there's this self-checkout thing, curbside pickup thing, just more of a focus on picking up your orders and not so much the person-to-person work, right? And so this is where we start to ask ourselves, so where, if you see some retail trade, or now hotel and lodging is another one. You see fewer pre-pandemic, March 2019, 6,600. Now we're 5,770. All other services dealing with tours, or all other services, salons, etc. 11,700, 12,290 before the pandemic, 10,630. So now the real question is, are those guys migrating up to construction, or are they migrating out, right? And that's where we need to figure out if there's a real, then this is kind of the next big project this is the big project right now for GITA, which is understanding the contribution of the military buildup relative to what it's doing as far as crowding out certain areas of industry and the marketplace. So for example, jobs. There are still jobs that are not filled that are needed. So this is, let's see, I just did a kind of I just threw out there a couple different occupations where we're under supported on our island, right? So project management specialists, a location quotient of 1 means for the size of our population, we got just the right amount of people doing it, okay? So if your location quotient is less than 1, then that means you don't have enough people doing that thing. If your location quotient is 2 to 1, then that means you got too many people, right? So for example, if everyone that graduated from law school came to Guam and worked for the AG or whomever, right? What would happen to the location quotient for attorneys in Guam? It would do what? Go up, go down. Go up, right? To 2 or 3, meaning too many attorneys for the number of our population, right? Whereas if all the attorneys deserted our island and we were left with 1, then our location quotient would do what? It would go down, right? So that's what this number means. This is labor? No. Anyway, I can show you on my website. Go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics economic dashboard. That's where you can find much of this information. And I just pulled data from there that I thought would be relevant to educating our guests. Farming and fishing, location quotient 0.22. This means the current level of staffing for these particular positions, not in the government of Guam, just labor-wise in the industry, labor-wise in the market. We need 170 or so project managers, or rather we have 170, we need an additional 244, meaning we need about 410, right? Farming, fishing, and forestry, we need about 182. Computer and mathematical, we need about another 1,000 or so. Healthcare support, is it any surprise? We need another 2,000. This is healthcare support across various occupations, right? And these are median salaries that fit right in with the profile of what USDA is looking at, I think. And so really what we're trying to do is work towards industries that help build on these occupations. In addition to building on construction, because the construction industry, so we do have a workforce that's been developed to support the military buildup. What happens when the military buildup goes away? So one of the complementary industries is additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing is 3D printing, which can support submarine. It has many applications, but one of the great ones for Guam would be submarine repair and ship repair, right? What kinds of skills do you need for those types of occupations? You generally need, at the professional level, you need engineers. At the tradesman level, you need like CAD operators, very, very similar to some of our construction trades. BPT, this is our sale. This is similar to like our sales tax. So this is what we collect across different industries. As of December 2023, we see contracting, basically construction, being very, very robust. But you also see areas that can, this is what contributes to our GDP, folks. So this is what contributes to consumer demand is the consumption portion of GDP, and federal and local construction contribute to the government portion of our GDP, right? Professional fees, retailing services, all high. This is relative to pre-pandemic, okay? Relative to pre-pandemic, retailing is the same. Sales are the same, even though their staffing is less. Professional fees, professional services going up. There might be the same number. They might just be charging more for their services. I don't know. I haven't dug that deep yet. And lending has gone down primarily because of the rising interest rates, I would imagine. And rental of non-real property, meaning rental of equipment, canopies, chairs, stuff like that. According to the 2020 US Census Bureau, there's 21,000 US military personnel and dependents in Guam. The current buildup is projected to be 13 billion. This does not include any investments made by the Missile Defense Agency or the Polaris Point submarine projects. So there's quite a bit of defense money coming through Guam. What we're very concerned with is what it's doing for the rest of our island, as far as much as it's contributing. We all want to achieve this balancing effect in our community, not taking away to feed the defense machine and taking away from the local community, right? So moving forward, keep it short, since I think there's a break after me. What Gita's working to do is looking at the BPT. The BPT was what we use as our measure. So looking at the past, projecting into the future, what happens when this US contracting number sort of tapers off, right? And by contrast, what happens when our tourism gets back to pre-pandemic numbers? Because this is pre-pandemic levels, right? Meaning the numbers that we're reporting with half as many visitors are about the same. So if we got twice as many visitors, what would that do for professional fees, retailing services, et cetera, right? For the number of small businesses, what would it do for all of those different areas? We'd like to grow the number of small businesses, but we don't exactly know how much because we don't exactly have a good number. I have a good number in my brain, which is about 20. I think there's 2,600 licensed. I think there's 2,600 or so businesses on this island. I think that because during the first iteration of the pandemic, everybody applied for GITA grants. Everybody, everybody applied for grants at the Guam Economic Development Authority, whether they got them or not. We knew who you were, So that was really great to me, because if you ask Rev Tax, they'll tell you there's 20,000 business licenses issued. But the thing is, if you own a rental, that's one business license. And then if you own another rental, that's another business license. That does not constitute a small business necessarily with employees and so on and so forth, right? So we're still trying to get a good number and say, what do we want to do? Do we want to raise it by number of people employed by small businesses, or do we want to raise it by the number of overall small businesses with, and DRT is really getting great at breaking it down by the NACS code and all of that. They've really, that's just really made some strides in the last couple of years. I'm very, very happy with, we're very happy with that. I put a check mark because we already did this. This was one of our strategic goals, was to work towards a ratings upgrade, which we got earlier this year. Thank you, ma'am, from Moody's Investor Services. So Guam used to be non-investment grade, which means if you were managing a portfolio of bonds, or let's say you were Vanguard and you had Vanguard Mutual Fund Company, and you were looking to buy Guam. Sometimes you couldn't buy Guam because we were not considered investment grade. We were considered junk status. So first time in, I don't know, 20 or so years, we are investment grade. Yay. And so I put a check mark next to that because we already did that. And then lastly, our last strategic objective, again, goes back to our mission, which is to build a third industry as evidenced by the number of jobs and external investment flowing into Guam to support the industry. And that's what I got. So just want to see everyone. Thank you, and have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mel. At this time, we'll open up for any questions you have for Ms. Mendiola, Mel, Melanie, whatever name you choose to refer to her at today. We don't have questions online right now, but for those joining us online, you can also put your question in the chat. Anybody have any questions right now? Okay, with that said, we'll go ahead and go for a short 10-minute break. We do have some coffee and refreshments outside, so please join us for that. And then right after the break, in about 10 minutes, we have a great panel discussion, and we encourage you all to join in. For those who are joining us virtually, we will be playing a couple of videos, so please stay tuned as well.
This agency covers some of the most important work that USDA does, and is critical to the vision that the department has set for itself, helping rural America to thrive.
USDA Rural Development touches lives. Our investment in rural communities across this nation touches people from all walks of life and across the broad spectrum of program areas.
Without lenders and programs, credit enhancement like the USDA, we simply wouldn't have the access to capital to put these projects in the ground.
USDA believes in rural America.
The successes we celebrate come from all sectors of our programs.
We wouldn't be here today talking about the building without the involvement of the USDA and the funding to support the project.
Without USDA, I don't know where we'd be, but very thankful for what USDA has brought to the table in helping making this become a reality.
Ultimately, USDA Rural Development makes a difference in people's lives.
This is the most amazing program that exists for people like me, because I would not be able to be a homeowner any other way.
People like Maggie Winston of Kenai, Alaska, a mother of two who uses a wheelchair for mobility. Maggie built her home with the help of friends, family, and USDA Rural Development.
To be able to sit here and tell you that I own this beautiful home that we're in, and I can afford it, and it's mine, and it's just the most liberating feeling.
Half a day, everyone. Once again, thank you for joining us for the Public-Private Philanthropic Partnerships hosted by USDA Rural Development. We'll be starting in just a minute or so, So we ask that you kindly take your seats. And for all of us joining virtually, once again, thank you for joining us. And we'll be starting in just a minute. Half a day, everyone, and welcome back to USDA Rural Development's Public-Private Philanthropic Partnerships. We've had a couple of great conversations already, and we're going to continue on with the panel. But before we start that, I do want to recognize a few individuals who have joined us, Ms. Atursh and Ms. Kathleen from the Economic Development Authority. And Mr. Ken Lujan with the Small Business Administration. At this time, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Anthony Barcinas from USDA Rural Development, who will be moderating the next panel.
Thank you, Amanda. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. We got some good news. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, which means that we're going to have more time to field questions from you, the audience. And with that being said, again, we want to thank you for joining us today. And of course, we'd like to again extend our very warm and off-a-day welcome to our administrator, Mr. Joaquin Otoro, along with his chief of staff, Yvonne, and of course, our state director, Mr. Chris Kanazawa, and our distinguished guests as well from our state of Hawaii. Before we get started, wow. After today's discussions and presentations, you know, I spoke to Joe and I said, Joe, you really want me to come up here and talk after these guys? So I don't know if I have the hard job or I have the easy job. So please bear with me. But one of the things, you know, throughout my career with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Rural Development was the misconception about USDA. You know, the first thought that everybody comes to mind when it comes to USDA is farming and beef, right? US certified beef. We're much more than that. And we hope from today's discussions, you'll see through some of the discussions that we are here to help provide support in all areas of rural development. But if you guys have a barbecue and you need somebody that's certified with USDA certification, please give me a call. So anyways, before we begin, I'd like to first introduce our panelists. And without much introduction, is Joe Diego, our Guam Area Director. Next to him is Richard Buddy Nichols from our USDA Farm Service Agency. Next to Buddy is Lenny Okano Hendrick, which is our state engineer and acting community programs director from our state office in Hilo. Lenny, welcome. And last but certainly not least is Shirley Heatherly with our Honolulu office. Shirley is our business program specialist. Welcome and thank you, Shirley. And I'm not sure if he's online, but I also want to recognize Alton Kumura, who is our community programs director. He's from our state office in Honolulu. So Alton, aloha if you're joining us virtually. And also, I like to also recognize and introduce Scott Sakikihara. He's in the corner back here. He's also from our Maui office. He's with our team here as well. So thank you very much. So I'm going to get right into our discussions. Our discussions are going to center on some very key things that the Biden administration has focused on, some of which our Administrator Joaquin Otoro has talked about, dealing with smart climate economy, agriculture, housing, and business and economics. As Pacific Islanders living in isolated island communities, we are all aware of the vulnerability we face with climate change impacts on our neighborhoods, on our businesses, and our agricultural industry. These impacts manifest in higher energy costs, impacts on infrastructure, food security, and our environment. Something smart climate economies is one of the pillars of the Biden-Harris administration's goal and is supported by the Department of Agriculture Secretary Vilsack. Can you, the panel, share your thoughts on the impacts on climate change in rural economies you serve, and what kinds of resources are available to create a stronger, smart climate economy? So we'll start maybe with Lenny.
Thank you, Tony. So Rural Development has a Rural Energy for America program, or REAP is the acronym for the Rural Energy for America program, which provides guaranteed loan financing and or grant funding to agriculture producers and or rural small businesses for renewable energy systems or to make energy efficiency improvements. Under the rural renewable energy systems, eligible projects include biomass, geothermal, hydrogen, solar, etc. The energy efficiency improvement projects may include lighting, doors and windows, replacement of energy inefficient equipment. With the Inflation Reduction Act, the program has over $1 billion for the REAP program. This allows an eligible applicant to apply for a REAP grant of up to 50% of the total eligible project cost, or $1 million, whichever is less. The IRA also allows the agency to accept REAP applications quarterly, which in the past was either once or twice a year. Prior to the Inflation Reduction Act, the agency was able to provide up to 25% of total eligible project costs as a grant. So basically, even though the REAP program has been around for, I would say, at least a good 15 years, prior to the Inflation Reduction Act, the agency was able to entertain up to 25% of the total eligible project cost as a grant. And at that time, we could only entertain or accept applications either once or twice a year. But with the Biden-Harris administration and pumping monies towards this climate change, that allowed the agency, of course, to fund up to 50% of the total eligible project cost, or 1 million, in addition to being able to accept applications on a quarterly basis. So that has been a huge change under the REAP program. So what you see here is MEC LLC, and this is a warehouse that is located in Barrigado. So this particular project, the total project cost was over $1 million. The applicant in this scenario is MEC LLC, who then applied up to 25% as a grant, received a $250,000 grant, and thereby had to kick in 75% or over $1 million to make this project whole. The outcome of this project has provided over $119,000 in savings, provided over 80% of their energy needs, and of course, it's a clean, renewable energy source. The second project here was our grantee was the American Medical Center. So this here was a 60 kilowatt PV system, and the total project cost is over $400,000. The client or the grantee provided up to 75% of the total project cost, which equated to $311,573. And then at that time, again, because it was prior to the IRA funding, was eligible to get or receive up to 25% of their total project cost, which of course was $103,000. It did provide 25% of their energy needs, and as well as, it contributed to the clean renewable energy source. Now, I did not mention here about an energy efficiency project that, we've done in Guam. I don't recall if we have ever done one, but we, in our outreach, not only do we promote this whole renewable energy system, but we're also trying to promote or make more energy efficiency grants available. So a good example that I like to use is, if you have or of a mom and pop store that has outdated refrigeration or even a lighting system, obviously by providing or installing a more energy efficiency equipment would have cost savings. So for those of you who know of any type of, again, agriculture producer or a small business that may have outdated refrigeration or lighting, I would suggest that that person contact the agency for additional information, and then we'll go ahead and explain what the process is.
Thank you, Shirley. My name is Lenny O'Connell Kendrick. I'm the State Engineer and Environmental Coordinator for Rural Development, supporting today, helping out in the community facilities and the water environmental program. So you might think, why am I here? But I'm kind of helping out as our director is not able to make the trip. So piggybacking on Melanie's talk, my name is a kind of odd name for a woman. And so I was teased a lot when I was younger. They used to call me Leaping Lenny Poffo, for those that know the old wrestling world, or Lenny and Squiggy. So I'm fine if you guys make fun of my name. I'm used to it anyway. So piggybacking on Shirley and the smart climate programs that we have to kind of address climate issues. On the water and environmental side, so on the water and environmental side, we do projects that has to do with water and waste disposal, solid waste management, stormwater kind of improvements. One of the projects I wanted to kind of highlight that we've recently been fortunate to help work on is the Majuro Water and Sewer Company's DeLap Sewage Outfall Project. In Majuro, there's a outfall that's been deteriorated for many, many years. And it's been, the effluent coming out of the pipe is really near to shore. And that's where people go fishing, swimming, whatnot. It's a really big health and sanitary issue on Majuro. We were able to get an obligation for this project, a little over $10 million to a persistent poverty grant. And we are able to work in partnership with one of their other funding agencies to kick in the rest of the 25% funds for the project. So I'm super excited about this project. They're in the design phase right now. I'm just happy that we can be able to help them solve this big issue for the island, for the atoll, for all the residents there. So just to give you an idea of what the water and waste disposal program can do as far as with the ocean, you know, the changing ocean climate, and helping out the community also in improving their infrastructure. Just to go a little bit into what the program, this is an example of a project, but just to give you some background as far as what the water and environmental program does, we're able to provide loans and grants for communities in rural areas, like I mentioned, for drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste management, those kinds of things. How can you use the funds? How can you use the funds? Basically anything that's project related, from the pre-development planning part for your engineering consultant, any assessments that you might need to do on the system, and then to development, and of course, managing your, the construction part of the project. We want to basically make sure you have enough funds to have a complete project. So we are really invested in making sure your budget is in place, you have the right funding sources, those kinds of things. Like I mentioned, sorry. We cover from everything from the project activities, from engineering. There's environmental stuff that needs to be cleared. All our funding needs to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act. So I'm sure some of you might be familiar with NEPA and those consultations that we need to hold. If you need to purchase land to put your facility on, we can include that in the project cost also. Pretty much anything that's project related will be okay as far as a project budget. As mentioned, our the eligible areas that we can help out are with villages or towns with populations of 10,000 or less. If you have a lower median household income in the area, you could qualify for grants also. Right now, just to give you some context, the standard non-metropolitan median household income, which is the threshold that we look at for Hawaii and the American Samoa and the Western Pacific, is $79,000, more or less. So if you're in an area that has household income less than that, then you would qualify for grant funding from up to 45%. And if you're at a lower bracket, up to 75% of grant funds. Okay. Eligible applicants would be, of course, your public bodies, so under your government infrastructure agencies, nonprofit organizations. So for those systems that have, maybe they're not owned by the government, but maybe like by a village or association of homeowners, they own the system, they'll be eligible to apply for assistance from our program. What do we have? What kind of assistance do we have? So it's a loan and grant program. Basically, typically, that's how it kind of works for this for water and environmental. We do have lower interest rates right now. If you're in a lower median household income area and you're addressing a health and sanitary safety issue, then you could qualify for the poverty rate. which is 2.125%. And what is attractive also is that it's a 40-year term, or like the life cycle or life term of your facility. And for pipes and stuff, it's normally should be longer than 40 years. So we'll go 40 years out. As mentioned, the grants are based on the median household income. So if you're under that 79,000 threshold, then you could qualify for grant funding. And basically, when we're looking at your application, the actual grant amount that we can obligate will depend on like what can your system afford to service, right? So we understand that some companies or infrastructure agencies out there, they don't have extra funding to be able to either service debt or put towards projects. So we're willing to look at sometimes more creative or strategic leveraging of funds, not only from our agency, but maybe from another agency or funder for those projects. As mentioned in the earlier project in Majuro, though not fully approved yet, they're looking at Asian Development Bank to help with that project also, just to give you an idea. Okay. In addition to, I just wanted to mention, in addition to our general bread and butter water waste disposal program, there are other ways that we fund projects with the infrastructure. One of the popular ones that we've been hearing nowadays with the drought that's been happening, or you know, maybe some water sources are getting, the aquifers are getting tapped out, or there's a lot of leaks in your system where it's overburdening, you know, the wells, or even like your wastewater treatment plants. If there's other water coming into your wastewater treatment systems that are overburdening the treatment plants, if there's an event that you can link to your problems with your system, then you can qualify for an ECWAG grant, or an emergency community water assistance grant. The other way we can get more funding out to you is through supplemental funding that might come from the current administration, or like if disaster support. So for example, this past year, or right now, we're actually helping American Samoa with a disaster grant funding that we got allocated for them for something that happened in calendar year 22. So they have money that's just allocated for them to help do repairs to their water system in relation to my damages from their disaster in that year. So that notice came out maybe in June of last year. So we haven't heard anything yet for calendar year 23, but that would be a great thing if I think the typhoon was in that year too, right? 23. So if there's opening for funding from that pool of funds, then of course we'll reach out to Guam and probably Rhoda or something. So don't hold me to that, but that's the kind of funding that could get, you know, set aside for areas with special needs. In addition to those special set asides, to help you prepare like an application or just get the technical information together to apply for funding from us, we do have grants that we can award for those things. Either through our PPG or search grants, which are like pre-development, where you would use that money to pay your consultant to help prepare the preliminary engineering report or the environmental studies that you need to apply, right? So we have funding for that. And then we also have solid waste management grants that are on a yearly basis, where we could award funding to a nonprofit or a public body to kind of either help with their solid waste programs, or to like maybe train their staff to do something a little different to help alleviate the solid waste issues in your areas, in your communities. Okay. Yeah, so just a little bit back on the ECWAG grant, just to put it out there that you understand. It's an emergency event, doesn't have to be federally declared. And for water source projects, we can award up to $1 million for projects that take care of improvements to those things in your system, and up to $150,000 for like maybe your distribution lines. These grant awards can be coupled with our regular water and waste disposal, so it would supplement the funding that you could get if your project goes more than that amount. So there's a couple of different sources of funding for you. One thing I wanted to mention about congressional directed spending, that's kind of been a way for some communities to get grant awards set aside for just them. And these are bigger amounts than typically what you would see from our typical program. So how this program or how this works is either the congressman's office would reach out to you or you would reach out to them to tell them about your project. In the past couple of years, they've been able to appropriate funding for different organizations to help them with their bigger projects. They say they need more funding, and we administer the grant funding, and we also will take in the application and administer the grants the same way as our typical program would. But what this does is say, for example, Congressman Sablan's office on Saipan in this fiscal year 24 was able to get $1 million for Department of Public Lands for an Oscono infrastructure project. I think they're trying to develop homelands out there. So they needed some help in funding the infrastructure. So they worked with the congressman's office, and the congressman was able to get approval to appropriate funding for that department. And that was in the tune of $1 million. And that funding is just for them. Like, they don't have to compete for it. They just need to go through the normal process with us. Okay. I think that was most of what I had. Oh yeah, and just a little bit on the pre-development planning. Like when I mentioned with your engineering and environmental consultants, we can award up to 60,000 or 75% of the total cost that you have to do those things when you have a higher population of 10,000 or less. But if you have a smaller population, smaller community, we can award 30,000 with no matching to help with that thing. We're trying to get that 30,000 to be higher too, because we know fees are higher nowadays with professionals. So believe they're trying to work on that. And another big one that we've noticed out here and in the freely associated states is solid waste management. We've just awarded last fiscal year grant to the CNMI Office of Planning and Development. So they're doing some training for their operators in Tinian and Rhoda on solid waste management. So we're working with them on a project that they're doing for their communities out there. So this project, this program is a national program. So we just help the national office process it. They have about $4 million a year for this program. And you have like a year, you kind of describe like a year's project of what you're going to be doing. Okay. I think that was what I had. And the technical assistance, like I mentioned. Yeah. Sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. In the industry of agriculture, the role of agriculture in island communities is an important one, but also faces many challenges to achieve a level of sustainability. While imports of food product will always be a part of our economy, achieving a level of food security and reliability is significant to the island communities. Here in Guam, we have ideal tropical weather, but with constant threat of typhoons. There is growing demand on our islands, but the low profitability limits the entry into new markets. And yet, with organizations like the Farmers Cooperative Association of Guam, access to federal programs supporting agriculture, local infrastructure in the form of farmer markets, commercial kitchens, and value-added product kitchens, there exists government and community support to stand up a stronger agricultural segment here in Guam. We have on the panel this morning, as I introduced him earlier, Mr. Buddy Nichols from Farm Loan Program Chief of the USDA Farm Service Agency in Honolulu. I'd like to start with Buddy to talk briefly about Farm Service Agency and what resources may be available to the Western Pacific Island communities. Buddy?
Thank you. Yes, this is on. Yeah, Bill. Too many years of driving a tractor. I'm Buddy Nichols, Farm Loan Chief for Guam and America Samoa and the Hawaiian Islands. Farm Service Agency is about business development. And I'm going to stand up because I get too excited about what I'm doing. What we're about is we're about cultivating big dreams on a smaller scale. We're right with the farmer. We're the grassroots. Rural America, or rural world, if you will, because wherever you go, a farmer is a farmer. I don't care where you are in the world. And it's all about producing a crop. It's all about producing food that we can all eat. And that's what the Farm Service Agency is about. Rural America, or rural world, if you will, is about farmers. That's the business we are developing, because that's what starts rural the rural world. So yeah, when Chris had asked me to be on this panel, he said, "Keep it light, buddy." So I've got 3 slides, and 2 of them are exactly the same. So that's pretty light. As I said, we work with farmers here on Guam, all the islands. As we know, we have food security issues. About 90% of our food is hauled in, 85% of our food is hauled in. Big challenges, big challenges. But our agency is designed in 2 parts. We have the production side so that we can continue to produce sustainable food. The other side of that is the finance side. So we can provide the infrastructure to help that happen. On the production side, we have a couple great programs in that area. One is insurance. Here on the islands, of course, on tropical, we have numerous crops, right? No matter what. So we can insure them. The idea is to keep it sustainable. We need to keep plenty of food on the tables at all times. Back in the Roman days, they always knew that hungry people revolt. Today, the same thing is with USDA. They want to keep our people fed. Hungry people vote for somebody else. So, but that's true. That is so true about what we do. We're here to produce food. And that's what our agency does, is to help the farmers stay in business. Now, as we know, none of us are getting any younger, right? Our farmers today, less and less of the family kids are staying on the farm. They're not even staying on the islands, right? So we need to find ways to keep them involved in agriculture. We need to find ways to keep them on the farm producing food. The average farmer is over 65 years old. And there's less and less, as we saw in our presentation earlier, farmers on the ground, on the land. This was the original business of our rural communities, was farming. And we're seeing less and less. And we have to continue to produce food. Side of our agency, like I said, there's 2 parts. The production side of our agency is about insurance, also about a thing dealing with something called Mother Nature. We know that Mother Nature is going to come and spank us. I farmed forever. I'm a 4th generation farmer myself. Farmed for 30-some years and turned it over to my daughters and so on and so forth. But we know that Mother Nature plays in our lives every day. We know she's going to come and spank us. We just don't know which day. Sometimes she'll spank us 2 or 3 times. We don't know. You know, a friend of mine, old farmer friend of mine, said, "You know, Bud, the best way to end a good drought is with a good flood." And generally that's what happens, right? So we have programs to allow us to help the farmer get through those tough times. And that's through the farm program side of the Farm Service Agency. It's when there's a disaster hits, we can help the farmer get back on his ground, get back to square zero, start planting, start growing more food because he just got wiped out. So that's the farm program side of our operation. That's where the insurance side comes in. That's where we have programs to help us with freight, particularly on the islands, to haul goods in, to haul products out. We also have an organic program, which helps certify for organics. So there's a multiple number of programs, and you just need to come into our offices. Our Farm Service Agency is a farmer-based program. What I mean by that is this: every single island, every single county, every single state has a farmers on a committee that oversees a program. They meet every month. They give direction to the organization, to our agency. And so it's farmer-based. So every month, farmers get together and help the agency get through and address the issues that are at hand right now, right here, to keep sustainable agriculture. That's the key to the program. The other side of the program is the financial side. We do financing, government assisted loans, if you will, for farm ownership, for equipment, for supplies, whatever. So on that side of the program, that's where I'm involved. We provide funding. And what we try to do, and we don't even try, we do. Our agency, our president administrator says, buddy, find a way to say yes. Doesn't say don't look at it. Find a way to say yes. We have government laws, we have government rules, we got this, we got that, but find a way to say yes to help that farmer be successful. And that's what our intent is. Our greatest day is when a farmer walks in and says, there you are, I got you paid off. That's the greatest day of my life because he is successful enough. We're not collateral lenders. If this pencil costs $1, I'll lend you $1. I don't need your firstborn. I just give me the pen full as collateral and we're off. Because our job is to make the farmer successful financially, sustainable. Revenue on a farm comes from two things, production and price. That's it. Farmers are notorious for knowing what they produce. I produce so many boxes of tomatoes today. They know that. We just need to help them with the other side. How do we get them to price? Where's my little clicker? Oh, there we go. My second slide. Oop, oop. Maybe not. Okay, here we go. One more. There we go. This is part of business development right here. Notoriously, farmers. Well, I'm a price taker. What do you think I ought to get for my crop, my product? We take him to the next level, being a price maker. What is it worth? What do I need to be happy? To make me happy, I need to take care of the farm. To make me happy, I need to take care of my family. And to make me happy, I need to take care of the land. Because it's going to be here when I'm gone. That's one of the things I enjoy so much about being a farmer. I enjoy so much about working with farmers. The fact is, it goes on forever. I'm just here today. Somebody will be behind me to take care of this resource called my farm. That's what the farm program or farm service agency does. It helps the farmer take care of the farm so that they can produce food so we all can eat. I can go into more about the farm loan program, but I just want to keep it with the farmer. So if anybody, so you'll hear about a lot of grants, you'll hear about a lot of things. Anything we can do to support those activities, we're going to do it. Farmers need free money. That's cool. But oftentimes they need some money to get free money. Come and see us. We have an office right here. We have an office right here in Guam. We have an office on all the islands. Come in and see us and see what we can do to help us find a way to say yes for the farmers so we can produce food. So thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I'm not sure about you, but I'm going to the farm. Who's coming?
Pardon me?
No, I was saying I'm not sure about the rest of the audience, but I'm going to the farm after your speech. Anybody coming? Thanks, buddy. So in the industry and the realm of housing, I know that's a very, very important topic. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Shirley, I'm back from the farm now, but we're gonna have Shirley talk a little bit about some of our other programs that touch on agriculture and agriculture development. So Shirley.
So before I begin the topic on the value added producer grant, I did want to mention how earlier on the energy program, whereby up to 50% of the total project cost, right, could be in a form of a grant. So for an agriculture producer, the other 50% could come from Farm Service Agency. So through Buddy's loan program. And as a matter of fact, we have done it in the past. And I think it's a really compliment to show that both two agencies under Department of Agriculture being able to provide assistance to a producer who whether wants to put up a solar system on his warehouse or possibly again change out the refrigeration. So again, if you know of an agriculture producer who is interested in the solar program, by all means, contact whether it's myself in Honolulu or the Guam office for Buddy's FSA. So with that, the other program that we have is the Value Added Producer Grant Program, which helps agriculture producers enter value-added activities to generate new products, create and expand marketing opportunities, and increase producer income. Keep in mind, this is a one-to-one match. So it's not 100% grant. The grant and matching funds can be used for planning activities or for working capital expenses related to producing and marketing a value-added agriculture product. Examples of planning activities include conducting feasibility studies and developing business plans for processing and marketing the proposed value-added product. Examples of working capital expenses include marketing, advertising, and salary expenses. The maximum planning grant amount is $75,000. The maximum for working capital is $250,000. One of the eligibility requirements for this value-added producer grant is the applicant must be an independent producer, which must produce and own more than 50% of the agriculture commodity to which value would be added as a subject of the project proposal. For this current fiscal year, the program was appropriated approximately $30 million. This particular program is where all the funds are retained in the national office. There are other programs where every state receives their own allocation, but the value-added funds are retained in the national office. So you could imagine that it is a very, very competitive program. So what happens is there is a notice of funding availability that appears in the Federal Register. There is a deadline. Of course, you want to make sure that whatever is being asked for is being provided. Okay, and so once all of the applications are received in the state office, then we, of course, go through the application to determine the eligibility of the applicant. Once we've gone through that process, then we're able to proceed with applications. And one of the things I always tell applicants who are interested in this program is to start early. This application, you know, again, thinking that it is a competitive program, right? So you want to be in the realm of being selected for this program. It is a really, really good program. It truly is. So get a head start in putting together what's being asked for in the Federal Register. Contacting the state office on, you know, if you need assistance. I mean, we are necessarily not going to be able to write the grant for you, but we can give you tips in terms of, you know, how, again, one of the things I always say is make sure that whatever is being asked for, again, is what you provide. However, making sure that you're thoroughly explaining what the product is, what the product can do, and if it's going to be a marketing or working capital request, making sure to address who are you planning on selling your product to? Because as a reader, we need to fully understand what's happening from beginning to end. So here is the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative. So the Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative is a 104 farmer member cooperative on the Big Island who received a $250,000 working capital to expand their gluten-free breadfruit flour product line to grocery stores, food manufacturers, food service providers, and public institutions. This 3-year grant is currently being used for labor, supplies, product packaging, marketing materials, advertising, and sales outreach. So again, Hawaii Ulu producers also not only received this value-added producer grant from the agency, but also received a renewable energy grant. So in terms of assistance, we have provided them a fairly good amount of grant assistance to the co-op. The second project here is Spicy Ninja. So for those of you who enjoy spicy sauces, the agency also provided a Big Island agriculture producer Spicy Ninja sauce a working capital grant of $184,938. The goal of the business was to increase their sales by expanding their online presence, establish new wholesale and retail customers on Oahu, and increase hot sauce production capacity and improve distribution efficiency to meet market demand. So a majority of the projects that we've been funding has been on the working capital side, not necessarily the planning grant. But we do encourage, agriculture producers to, by all means, especially when you have a lot of farmers market that, for Hawaii, I mean, they're all over. It's like every day there's a farmers market somewhere. And there's a lot of producers who have very, very creative ideas. And so it's just a matter of, for these producers to take the next step forward, right? So I always say, if you got this organic tomato producer who's producing his tomatoes and has started on a small scale, maybe has been selling his tomato sauce, but now wants to expand the operation or the marketing of it. So this is where the value-added producer grant may be of assistance. But again, if you know of an agriculture producer who is producing something right now and wants to expand their market, or maybe is still in the thought process, and maybe it would make better sense for the person to have, whether it's a marketing plan done or a business plan or a feasibility study, then that ag producer could certainly apply for a planning grant. So hiring a consultant to put together that plan. So after the plan is put together and it shows that there is marketability for this tomato sauce. So at that point in time, the producer then could apply to the agency for the working capital to be able to execute the marketings, the tomato sauce, right? So possibly buying maybe new labels or even the bottling. That is something where the working capital could come into play.
Thank you, Shirley. Affordable, safe, quality housing seems to be always on the top of the list in communities across the nation. Guam is no different. High cost of materials and construction and limited suitable land all contribute to the higher cost of housing. And when I speak about the limited supply of affordable housing, this is not limited to the residential, but also farm labor housing and workforce housing. While there is no one solution, there is reason for optimism with the evidence of local and federal support in the form of supportive housing policies and funding. I'd like to ask Joe Diego, our area director for Guam, CNMI, and the FAS states to speak about his thoughts on the housing situation in Western Pacific and the resources rural development offers. Joe?
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And again, welcome to everybody here in person and also to our virtual participants. Before I begin, again, I can't underscore the importance of Mr. Arturo's visit here with the blessings of our state director, Mr. Kanazawa. I don't recall anybody at his level. He oversees a huge housing portfolio. He oversees our Native American programs in the U.S. He oversees disaster programs. Yet he made the time to come all the way out here from D.C. And what's really special about Mr. Arturo and his chief of staff, Yvonne, so I never met them. I picked them up at the airport. And the first thing Yvonne asked, do you know where I could get red rice in Kelaguen? I looked at her. Yep, she's not from Guam, but you know, I'm glad she liked it, and I guess she's enjoyed some of that in DC. So, and then just when you think you saw it all, I took Mr. Arturo to a local restaurant, and he ordered fish escabeche, and he finished the whole thing. There's only bones left. So, and you know, he did it the right way because he had some stains on his white shirt, so he's got something to remember us by. So, thank you. And you know, as we speak, our panel here, we're really just talking about the tip of the iceberg. We actually, the latest slide I saw, we have over 41 loans, grants, guarantees. It's probably a lot more with the IRA, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. And I also want to, you know, recognize, you see EDA here. They're also helping develop further industries in Guam. So I've been working very closely with Latars and Kathleen on some of our business programs to facilitate alternative industries, because we learned a lot from the disaster. We still had empty food shelves and all that. So I'm very excited working with them. And of course, our friend Ken Lujan, Small Business Administration, we're also looking at possible alternatives to expand business programs in not just Guam and Sinai, but the freely associated states. So my partner Ken, he's back there, very quiet, but he's very quiet, but speaks very loudly in terms of his actions. So, okay, slide, please. So one of the I really enjoyed talking about our housing programs so very much, and this is, Ms. Arturo, you'll be happy to hear that, you know, we do millions of dollars in housing programs throughout the Western Pacific, and it's easy to kind of get complacent with the dollars you're putting out. Well, here's something that hit me near and dear. Is one weekend I was at the mall with my family walking through the food court, and this stranger walked up to me with his wife and 3 kids. And they shook my hands and they said, sir, I just really want to thank you for putting my family in a home for the very first time. I didn't even know who this person was. I signed documents, so he probably sees my name, but that happened over a decade ago. So that reminds me that every dollar we put into every home, whether it's for ownership or repair, it may be $1 to us, but it means a whole lot to a family's livelihood. So that's something that sticks near and dear to me. So nevertheless, well-built affordable housing is essential to the vitality of communities in the Western Pacific. We have a program in the Marshall Islands called the Self-Help Housing Program. And when they announced the availability of that program in the Marshall Islands, one of their ministers of housing in Marshall Islands said, the key to a man's success in the Marshall Islands is, 1, you need to know how to fish. 2, you have to have a home. So those are the 2 important things for that community. And I'm sure we all share the same sentiments. Rural development single-family housing programs gives families and individuals the opportunity to buy, build, or repair affordable homes in rural areas. Eligibility for these loans, loan guarantees, and grants is based on income and varies according to the district. Slide, please. So as Mr. Arturo mentioned, our 502 Direct program is a program where USDA is the lender. So you work directly with our staff, and it assists low and very low income applicants obtain decent, safe, and sanitary housing. One of the key features with this program, you know, when we talked about employees in the service in the hotel, working in fast food restaurants, it's very difficult for them to afford a home without having a down payment. Well, our program, as Mr. Arturo mentioned, we do 100% financing. We have the ability to price a loan down to 1% through payment subsidies. And our term is a lot better than what you would get from the banks. We go 33 years and in some cases up to 38 years. So what that means to that family in the low and very low income family is all of a sudden your borrowing potential goes from here to here. especially in today's market, the rates are real estate is high, but with these programs, it helps that disadvantaged family now compete to be able to consider getting a home that was only a dream to them. Slide, please. Currently, these income limits, they're adjusted every July. So you can see that a 1 to 4 person household, if you're considered a very low income household, then your income cannot exceed 40,400. And for that same household, your income cannot exceed 64,650. So basically, to be eligible to apply for USDA's direct program, your household income cannot exceed the low income, which is what you're looking at on your right. So if your household income, or you know someone's household income is within those parameters, they may be eligible to apply for a direct USDA loan. And keep in mind, our program, we're there to make you successful homeowners. Most lenders, you become delinquent, 30, 60 days, they're already starting foreclosure. USDA has a vast array of servicing tools. Life happens. You had a death in the family recently, or almost a year ago. We had a major typhoon. And guess what? We put out a press release. We gave all our borrowers from that typhoon a 6-month moratorium saying, take care of your livelihood. It's a major storm. Get your life back together and don't pay us for 6 months. And if you need it longer, we can actually extend that up to 2 years. Okay. Our program, if you're in the service industry, as you know, the job may vary depending on the activity. You get a reduction in pay, come see us. We'll help you see what we can look at. We can consider not only giving you a moratorium, but possibly a lower rate. Okay, so that's what USDA, this is really the heart of USDA's programs, is this housing program to make families successful homeowners. Slide, please. Now, if you have a family that probably exceeds that income limit, we have our guaranteed program where we actually work with private lenders to provide the financing to that moderate income family, is what we call that. And USDA provides a 90% guarantee. And because we minimize the risk to that lender by 90%, they're able to offer the 100% financing to a moderate income family household. So this program, again, it facilitates our partnership with local lenders, and we even have some off-island lenders that are now here. So we really got to make sure our local lenders remain active, because the off-island lenders know how valuable this program is to the communities. And so they're here, and so this is that program. So basically, we can serve very low income, and moderate income families. Slide, please. So for the guaranteed program, you can see that it caters to a higher income bracket. So this one's a little higher than what the previous income limits I showed you. And again, we feel that this category of families can actually go to the bank, because again, we don't want to shortchange the private sector. So we'll work with the private sector and the class of families they're working with, and we'll provide a guarantee so that they can provide that 100% financing option to these families. Slide, please. Now, another program we have is our 504, as I didn't realize it, but we're the 500 channels, the channels you don't really care about, and their cable TV. But our 504 loan and grant program, it actually helps the very low income families repair their home from or make their home safe, decent, and sanitary. We all had damages from the typhoon. So our approach to helping families that have damages, you have to go to FEMA, you go to SBA, and whatever remains, then USDA can come in with our 504 program to help you complete the rebuild of your home. It can be used to replace your electrical wiring, your plumbing, your deteriorating walls, roofs, make your home ADA accessible if you need to put ramps, if you're pushing around a wheelchair in the home, or you need an accessible bathroom for your family. We see a lot of success in our Palau office. The traditional home in Palau, the bathroom is built outside of the home, okay? So now as these families get older, it's becoming more of a challenge for those elderly to go out to that bathroom because it's dark, the weather, if it's raining, they can slip and get hurt. So a lot of our 504 program now is relocating those bathrooms into the families' homes. So they're very happy about it, but there's still that situation. So we have a grant for elderly. Believe it or not, because we went through a disaster, the grant for the elderly can go up to $15,000. We have a loan program. If you're not elderly, if you're below 62, you can get up to $40,000 at a 1% interest rate for 20 years. Very affordable, very affordable. So if you're an elderly, you can actually combine the grant and the loan. If that $15,000 is not enough to fix your home, you need a little more, we can combine a loan to make that home safe, decent, and sanitary. So this is a program that's widely used in the freely associated states. With here in Guam, we're now finding out that the niche we're finding is that citizens of the freely associated states are not eligible for FEMA and SBA disaster programs. So now we're that option. Freely associated states are eligible for our 504 program. So we are starting to get some applicants come in from citizens of the FAS that don't qualify for those programs. So we're happy to fill that niche. Slide, please. Here is the income limit for our 504 program. Again, it caters to the very low. So if your income limit, your household income is within these limits, then you're eligible for our 504 program. Again, it caters to just the very low income families. Slide, please. And I just want to share, I know we all talk about, you know, the housing prices in Guam and how, you know, there's several pieces of the puzzle for affordable housing. You've got affordability, you have infrastructure, you have inventory. I'll tell you right now that I see our housing partners here, and I'll introduce them later, but you're in good hands here as far as the part of the equation that has affordability. Because aside from our program, believe it or not, Guam Housing has some programs to help offset your cost also by offering first-time homeowner grant. Our partners at GURA, we're working with them. We also have a program that is also bridging the gap. Even though we offer all these programs, our housing direct specialist is not here, but even if someone is a low income, they have good credit, no debt, the most they could qualify for is $400,000. Okay, today's market, the median price of a home is about $495,000. So there's still that gap. Well, we have a program with GURA that's helping us bridge that gap with their what's the name of that program? Yeah, so home program. So that's a new program, and we already have clients in our portfolio. Our packager here, we have one certified loan packager in the entire region, Mr. Mark Fontenot. So thank you for doing the work you do. So he basically relieves a lot of work from our office because he's a certified loan packager. He went through all the training. So he's actually been able to leverage our 502 with the GURA program to kind of bring some packages to us. So so in the Marshall Islands, as I mentioned, we have what we call mutual self-help housing program. It's a partnership we've established with their state government. It's similar to Habitat for Humanity, but in Habitat for Humanity's case, they build one home at a time. With our mutual self-help, you build multiple homes at a time. And every family starts together, they progress together, they build together. No one family is going to finish before the others. You all build. So the importance of this program is you're not just building a home, you're building a community. And that's why we see this program. So with the families providing 30% sweat equity in their program, now their mortgage is not going to be 100% of what today's market is because they put sweat equity. Now it's only 70% of the market. So that's how we contribute to affordability. Our partnership in the Marshall Islands, we're about 16 years now, where every other year we give them a grant to help fund that project. And they've already built about 160 homes in the Marshall Islands alone with this mutual self-help housing program. So this is one success story that we think there's opportunities for Guam, CNMI, and all the islands. Slide, please. This is just a picture of some of the homes that we've built in the Marshall Islands, and we talk about climate change. If you don't know, Marshall Islands is very flat. I'll share a story. I flew in one day. By the time you get there, it's about 7 o'clock at night. So, you know, I went to the hotel, woke up the next day, my staff picked me up. That very same road I traveled to go to the hotel was full of debris, sand, coconut debris, leaves. And so I asked my staff, what happened? Oh, we had a high tide. high tide. So I said, should I be walking around with my life vest or something? But it's the reality. So a lot of the homes you see in the Marshall Islands, they're kind of elevated because that's the reality of what happens. And you talk about climate change and global warming. I think about a few months ago, if you heard the story about what happened to one of the islands, and it's a military base, Roy Namur in Kwajalein. They had just the king tides come in and wipe out almost that entire base. And they had a video of how people were just in the cafeteria, wiped off their feet because a wave came in. So this is really the reality of what we face. And that's why I'm glad in our projects in the Marshall Islands, they are creating some elevation to prevent any disturbance from global warming. Slide, please. On a local basis, we did work with our community partner, again, in this case, Gura Guam Housing, to build an affordable housing subdivision. We worked with Gura and our site loan program to bring infrastructure to a 56-unit housing subdivision in Mangilao. We used our 502 program, I believe even with Guam Housing's first-time homeowner program, and funded 56 new homeowners that now are realizing the Chamorro dream of home ownership for the first time. So we're very proud of that subdivision. So when you talk about how we can address the equation with inventory, if we put our minds together, this can happen. And I'd like to, again, moving forward, recognize, you know, you don't hear about it often, but what's happening is our chair from Chamorro Land Trust, Mr. Dave, you can just raise your hands, and the Guam Housing Authority, Edith Pangilinan, the executive director, and her staff. We're currently working on an MOU that would open up housing programs on Chamorro Land Trust. Okay, that's been a really neglected part of the island. If you all know, we always say Guam is divided 3 ways: 1/3 federal, 1/3 privately owned, and 1/3 government owned. So with the private market, the prices in the private market now sky high, let's now focus on Chamorro Land Trust, because as Lenny mentioned, we do have programs that also support infrastructure development. And there's possibility of even providing grants. So what that means for a potential homeowner, now the infrastructure for your home is not going to be that costly because we're throwing in some grants. Gura has worked with us and providing grants for infrastructure as well. So, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So Chris, our state director, was here when we, under the Obama time, when we did the ribbon cutting for Sagan Bonita. And I took him there the other day and to see the fruits of our labor. So we're glad that we solved 56 new homeowners now in Guam, and there's still an opportunity to do more. Slide, please. Just some of the specifics with this particular subdivision, conceptualized in 2009. You know, at that time, from 2003 to 2010, this is almost like frivolous now. The median price of a home at that time was $114,995 to $221,000. In 2010, that was a lot. Okay, now that's like, oh, how can we get back to those times? There was over 92% increase in the average price of a home from in that 7 years. So this housing subdivision was able to help solve that equation. As I mentioned, USDA offered a $1.5 million site loan. Gura provided $3.8 million in grant funds to construct the required infrastructure, because infrastructure had to be brought in from 1 mile out to that subdivision. And fortunately, because of that partnership, homeowners did not absorb that development cost. They did not absorb that full development cost because of the Gura grant, and the subsidized USDA loan. And with that subdivision, USDA obligated over $10.9 million in our 502 programs to help those families become first-time homeowners. Slide, please. Got a little ahead of myself, but yeah, this is the results, the ribbon cutting, the homes. Mr. Kanazawa doing opening remarks, so the importance of that. And again, in moving forward, as I mentioned, we're very excited in working with the chair of the Chamorro Land Trust, Guam Housing, to bring our program to Chamorro Land Trust, because I believe the last I heard, there's over 6,000 residential leases waiting to be awarded leases, something like that. So the opportunity is there to bring the infrastructure to this subdivision. I've showed how we could possibly look at self-help, how we can combine with local resources to bring affordability to these disadvantaged communities. So that's a positive. Another positive, um, well, since we have residents participating virtually, we are looking at a MOU to open up our housing program again in the CNMI. So what that means is now we're going to be able to do 502 and 504 programs. We're doing the same thing in Palau. We're doing a new MOU with the Housing Authority that will also bring our housing resource to them. Our FSM office it just recently opened, but one of the things that the director there wants to do is also have an MOU to have our housing programs in the FSM. So USDA, you know, we are quite active. We do feel the need and the importance of housing, safe and affordable housing in the entire region. And that's why I really appreciate Mr. Altoro and his very busy schedule coming out and seeing this firsthand, you know, our unique situation. And we're going to be in Sinamai, but I've also explained the importance of the freely associated states and how our housing program is at the heart of these areas. So, you know, we will be there. You'll be seeing us a lot more. So, you know, just sit tight. But thank you very much for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Joe. The Guam Economic Development Agency's Administrator's Economic Report, that was the report given by Ms. Melanie Mendiola, or Mel, is a very good assessment of the state of the Guam economy and recommendations of strategic development projects. These recommendations include development or expansion in the various sectors of industry development and capacity building, supported by infrastructure, transportation, healthcare, and tourism infrastructure. The recognition is that sustaining a business industry must be supported with broader serving public infrastructure. With rural development's mission of improving the quality of life and increasing economic opportunities for rural communities, we have an extensive menu of resources to support businesses and community development. I want to first like to ask Shirley to speak about the resources supporting businesses, and then followed by Shirley, we can ask Ms. Lenny to also talk about what resources we have available to assist community and public and community facilities. Thank you.
So a flagship program under the Rural Business Cooperative Services is the Business and Industry, or BNI Guaranteed Loan Program. This program improves the economic health of rural communities by increasing access to business capital through loan guarantees. Since this is a guaranteed loan program, there has to be a lender, since the government guarantee is on the loan provided to the lender. The applicants can be for or nonprofit businesses, public bodies, and cooperatives. Guaranteed loan funds may be used for business development, buy and develop land, buildings, and associated infrastructure for commercial or industrial use, buy and install machinery, equipment, supplies, and inventory, certain refinancing and acquisition of businesses. The maximum loan the agency can guarantee is $25 million with an 80% guarantee. The term of the loan is, in accordance with the bank's policy. The only stipulation we have is that the loans must be fully amortized, which means no balloon payments at the end of the term. The interest rate is negotiated between the lender and the borrower. The rates may be fixed or variable, and variable interest rates may not be adjusted more often than quarterly. There's another one. So here is a BNI guaranteed loan that we did with Bank of Guam. It was a $5 million guaranteed loan. And in this situation, the funds were used for debt refinancing, and it provided working capital to Grand Plaza Hotel. The loan, again, was initiated by ANZ Guam, which is now held by Bank of Guam, with an 80% guarantee. So this is a good example where, there's no connection with food per se, right? But again, under this program, we are able to do hotels, motels, B&Bs, we can do recreational facilities. As a matter of fact, I'm sure a majority of you have been to Oahu, where we have that water park out in Kapolei. So that actually was a loan, a BNI guarantee loan initiated by Bank of America for the water park. That project created approximately 350 jobs. So again, the focus, of course, is job creation or saving jobs. This program also is not to compete with SBA. Everyone is familiar with SBA. Every lender in town is familiar with SBA, but there are just differences between what SBA can get involved with versus with this particular program. And just to let you know, so this week, you know, Scott, Lenny, and myself have been meeting with banks here on Guam, and we're hoping to generate more businesses with your local lenders. It just makes it a whole lot easier when we're dealing with a local lender. But it's not to say, as a business, you're always going to seek financing for whichever lender is willing to provide you that financing. So if it means to, you know, go out into the mainland and look for a lender that's willing to do your financing, then that is something that certainly we can provide a guarantee loan on. So Dr. San Nicolas here received a loan amount for 2.7, and this was to acquire real estate. The total loan request again was 2.7 with an 80% guarantee, and the loan was made by Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Subsequently, Dr. San Nicolas received a renewable energy grant. So after he acquired his office, applied to the agency for renewable energy grant. So here it was to install his 47.7 kilowatt PV system. Total cost was 114,000. He was able to kick in the little over 94,000 and then apply to the agency for a $20,000 REAP grant. And in his situation, it provided 100% of his energy needs. So again, it's just showing that, you know, with the many programs that rural development has to offer, and like Joe had mentioned, right, over 41 financial assistance programs, it's nice that we are able to provide assistance to a business or even to a cooperative that was able to get grant funds by utilizing different programs in order for them to continue their operation and become very successful. So like Mr. Kanazawa had mentioned that, you know, we have so many different programs and it's very hard for applicants or even lenders to navigate our system, that we would prefer that if a business has some sort of proposal or like a summary of what they're trying to do, then it's for us from rural development to try and find a program that could possibly assist. And that would be the easiest way, I think, then for anyone to actually navigate through all of our programs, because there's just too many.
Thank you, Shirley. So in addition to helping develop the businesses in our communities, we have programs to help with community facilities itself. So community facilities, we have direct loans, loan guarantees, grants, programs to help, like Mr. Arturo said, to develop essential community facilities, in our rural communities out there. Some examples, like you mentioned, are educational facilities, healthcare facilities, medical clinics, those kinds of things. To be eligible for this program, these towns, these census areas need to have a population of 20,000 or less to be eligible for our direct loan or grant program, and 50,000 or less for the loan guarantees. And it's the same kind of thing like Shirley mentioned with the loan guarantees, where the applicant would work with the lender and they would get an 80% guaranteed from USDA. Something community facilities programs, you're able to provide financing for like hard assets, like a building, something, equipment. We don't do financing or funding for like a line of credit, or like for if you're doing recreational facilities, or like just to pay like your operational kind of expenses. That's kind of where Shirley was coming in with her program here. You can't build a facility where you're going to make money off of it, basically. You have to build a facility where you're trying to serve the community and provide either some kind of service to them or resource to them. One good example, or one recent example, I think maybe Governor had mentioned, was for the Shalampago Municipal Planning Council, where we're currently in construction for their multi-purpose building. This project was a very interesting one because there's multiple funding partners in it. USDA's direct loan was a 2.6 million. The government Guam kicked in 2.6 million. The Department of Defense kicked in $3.5 million. And the council itself about $500,000 for this project. Tony's one of Tony's babies. I guess he's helping oversee the construction right now. So if you have questions on that project, you can see him later and get more details on it. But this is a facility that is being built to serve the community there, the village there. It has the ability to be like an emergency shelter. So you can put beds in there for when emergencies were to hit Guam. And then there's also some classrooms in the front. There's some office space in the front. So they have the ability to provide some services to their community as far as with those spaces. It's one example. So the direct loan program, just like that project, is taking advantage of the attractive part of it is that we can have a longer term than most financing packages you might find out there. Right now, the market rate is 3.5%, and we reevaluate the rates every quarter. There's no low fees on the direct loans for the community facilities. You do need to demonstrate a financial need, meaning we won't be taking business from your local lenders. So one important part is that we need to see some kind of declination letter or declination documentation from your local lender, meaning that you approach them with your project and your financial needs, but they were not able to help you. So we can either come in and do the direct loan itself, or we could work out a partnership with them perhaps, where we might be able to guarantee some, or they might be comfortable with some of the loan money that you need, and we can help fill in the gap with our direct loan. I wanted to talk a little bit about our grants programs. One good example of a recent grant award that we had was with Total Guam Foundation. They're a local, I think, healthcare and healthcare services they provide to, I think they reach out and they do have a mobile unit to some of the further away villages that are in need of this kind of service. We recently had an emergency rural healthcare grant program where we were able to award them $270,000 for their transcranial magnetic stimulation equipment. So that's a newer thing out there in the healthcare industry, where they're able to kind of help patients by putting that thing, as you see in the picture, on the head, and they send these magnetic waves, I guess, through there to help them with their issues, or to help them analyze what's going on in there. But so they recently got that grant. Some of the other special grants that we have through community facilities, you might see disaster grants, like I mentioned before. We also have economic impact initiative grants, where it's for communities with extreme unemployment, and there's a very like an economic depression in their community, so they would qualify for those grants. I think we're waiting to see if we're going to get more funding in that program. The other one I mentioned before with our water and environmental was the same thing for community facilities, like your congressional directed spending grants. Kind of works the same way, but these are for projects not with infrastructure, but for community facilities. So for example, on Saipan, the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation has been recent recipient in fiscal year 23, 24 for some grant monies that Congressman Sablan is able to get for them. So we're able to help out with their equipment needs. I think they're recently right now trying to do a new parking garage for their employees, doing more facilities out in Rhoda and Tinian with their dialysis facilities out there. So they're able to get those bigger grant awards through this congressional directed spending for those projects. Here on Guam, I believe, was it the Guam Fire Department? I think they got one this year for fiscal year 24 to help with some of their equipment needs from Congressman Moylan's office. So those are like some of the special grants. Why they're special grants? Because there are a larger amount of grants awarded and obligated for those recipients or for those special priorities that we mentioned for disaster and whatnot. But we also have our regular grant program. What is attractive for that one here actually in Guam and Saipan and in freely associated states is that public bodies do not need to have a matching for that one. It could be 100% grant fund. We do have a small allocation here in Hawaii and the Western Pacific. But like I said, they don't need to have a matching for that. So what we often see with these grant applications are for like equipment needs, maybe vehicle or vans, those kind of things to help support either the public body agency's mission, or if an office, you know, if they need some more office equipment or something's damaged or outdated, these grants can help with those things. Same eligibility, like I mentioned, as far as with the direct loan with the population for that one. So these, as I mentioned, we do have a limited amount of allocation every year. If we have a good year and we're able to spend or get out all of our funding, we can send these applications up to the national office for perhaps if they have funding in their pool, that we can try and ask for some assistance there. It does compete more, you know, whether this project priority with other states also, but there's also that resource. And as I mentioned, there's also pots of money per se where, you know, with the special mission areas that we have. Just a small bit about our guaranteed loans, like I mentioned, 80%, the maximum amount is $100 million. Same like the business loan guarantee program, the lender and the borrower would negotiate the fees, the interest rate. Have an initial guarantee fee of 1.25%, and the annual fee of 0.5 is actually on the lender, not passed on to the borrower. And same thing with what Shirley mentioned as far as the loan must be fully amortized. Yeah, everything is done online nowadays, and that one RD, I think the guarantee loan program is kind of like one place for all of the community business programs, water infrastructure is all like one guarantee loan application site that you go to. I think just one last thing I want to mention, kind of in conjunction with the housing and how community facilities can help. So community facilities, like I mentioned, is not for single family homeowners, but more for like nonprofits and public bodies. But what we've been seeing is some nonprofits, they have programs out there where they bring in the maybe apprenticeships, programs, we also have the housing program for them that could fit under community facilities. So we recently awarded about a $900,000 USDA direct loan to one of our nonprofits on Oahu, or Ma'u Farms. They have a, they do this housing is providing temporary housing for their students in their farming internship program. So it's like short term, not long term housing, but like just for this maybe 1 or 2 years where they have the students can live nearby the farm, and we're able to provide housing for them for that, or direct loan for that. So. If you guys have any questions after this, I have some other fact sheets I can give you on both the community facilities and the water environment I talked about earlier. And we'll be here to talk to you. We're here for you today. So feel free to stop by. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Lenny, and thank you, panelists, Joe, Buddy, Lenny, and Shirley. So that concludes our panelist discussions. And of course, we invited you all here, as Mr. Kanazawa, our state director, has mentioned, is really to get, to listen to you folks and to hear what you have to say and to ask us the questions. So with that, we'd like to open up the floor for any questions or comments. For those that are joining us virtually, we are also taking questions virtually. We will have individuals monitoring. So if you wish to pose a question, please put it in the chat and we'll be sure to get it to the panelists. Thank you. All right, we do have one question from a participant in our virtual audience. Is RES grant only for Guam? Can we apply for value-added producer grant for Birunat? I think the RES might be the REAP grant. Yeah. Shirley?
So the RES grant, I'm assuming you're talking about the Renewable Energy Energy for America program, or REAP. So yes, it is open to Guam as well as the Western Pacific and the freely associated. Yes, CNMI, Republic of Palau, Micronesia, all of those areas are eligible for the REAP program.
Okay. And the second question, Shirley, I think you can answer this. Can we apply for the value-added producer grant for Birunat? I assume the production and distribution of Birunat.
I guess I'm not familiar with the whole Birunat, so if you could explain
yeah,
that how.
Thanks for Birunat is like a local fruit classification, if you will. It's a nut that is chewed and shared among culturally in the islands. I'm not sure what the FDA classification. I believe at one point it was a prohibited substance from being imported or exported out of the islands, but it's very commonly consumed here in Guam. Anybody else from the audience want to comment more about Birunat and maybe help our panelists understand a little bit more about that? Yes, sir. Yep. There is a market locally, yeah, but I think there is a restriction on exporting it, right? Yep. So it is an agricultural product, if you will, here in the islands. There is a market.
Well, in terms of the value-added producer grant, again, it would be a farmer producing at least 50% or more of whatever they're adding value to. So I guess as a follow-up question would be is what is that Birunat being used for, right? So, I mean, I know, and I'm not sure whether you could use it for cosmetics, but the value-added producer grant does not allow cosmetics as it's an ineligible item. So in this instance, if the individual could contact me directly, we can talk a little bit more on this value-added producer grant. And if need be, I'll contact our national office to confirm whether we would be able to entertain an application under the program.
Thank you, Shirley. Are there any questions from the audience for any of our panelists? Yes.
I have a question. This is regarding, let's say, a new project costs 1.5 million, and out of the total costs, in certain areas on Guam, the sewer system is not reaching there. So I believe in the northern part, probably, if the total cost is 1.5 million and let's say certain percentage of that is for sewer, would that be eligible under that you mentioned some need for sewer line or water? Can that be funded through USDA or your program?
So hold your microphone so I can ask you questions. So basically, you're wanting to extend wastewater service to a community. Okay, so
It's not an existing project, but it's a new one.
Yeah, so you'd extend service out, right? Like install water, so wastewater collection system out there. We could fund that kind of, that's an eligible project, yes. I guess the questions I would ask you is this, when I'm looking at an eligible applicant, it'll have to be the public body or GWA, or if it's going to be a privately owned system by the community per se.
It's under consideration, but it's going to be a nonprofit organization.
Okay, great.
To create a facility, what do you call that? Community facility.
Yeah, so basically you would set up so the nonprofit organization would, I'm imagining, would be made up of the people that live in the community that the wastewater system would serve. Yes. So that's pretty common where we see, say, a group of homeowners that would form a nonprofit group, and they would have to have the legal responsibility for the system we're helping to finance. They would be the owners. They're responsible for collecting the fees, all of those things. Yes, that is an eligible project.
Thank you.
And yeah, you can come talk to me later if you wanna. Yeah,
I will certainly.
definitely.
Any other questions? We have several hands here. We'll start with the young lady over here.
Hafaday, good morning. Thank you for all this wonderful information. I'm Monica Guzman from Guam Unique Merchandise and Art. My question is for the value added producer grants again. It says here that it's open to independent producers and collectives, right? Could an organization like GUMA, my nonprofit, apply for a value added grant and work with some of our members or participants who have value added products, agricultural related?
It is possible. It may be possible, Monica, but keep in mind that whenever we're looking in a situation like how you're describing it, right? It's the nonprofit that would be the applicant. I believe national office has only set aside, I believe, 10% of the appropriated funds for the value added to that type of venture. So nationwide, I am really not sure how many national office has awarded to those nonprofit organizations for helping producers in their value added product. But I mean, if that is something, again, GUMA is interested in, we can take a look at it and see how we can somehow try to make it work. I know that the value added producer grant regulations are going to be rewritten for next fiscal year. I don't know what the changes will be, but of course, I believe I haven't heard that in terms of the eligibility, if that will change. My understanding is it's not going to be changing. Okay, I believe it's going to be more of clarifying a lot of the questions that come to that are on the value added producer grant, because the value added producer grant regulations it can be a cumbersome to try and understand what is the agency asking for, or what type of the projects are the agency looking for, right? And so with that, that's why the regulations are being rewritten to clarify a lot of those questions. But in terms of the eligibility for the value added producer grant, I haven't heard that there were going to be any changes made. So Monica, we can certainly talk about this on Thursday and see how, again, what you were looking at and how we can possibly look at the value-added producer grant program. Because there could certainly be other programs that we haven't discussed today that you have in mind that we could maybe benefit, where your producers may benefit from.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Is it on? Yeah. My name is David Babauta Herrera. I am a part of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And first, I would like to thank the USDA Rural Development team for doing an outstanding presentation today. Thank you so much. You guys, amen. I joined the Chamorro Land Trust Commission maybe a couple of years ago, and the directorship at that time was Miss Angie Camacho, which is sitting up here now with the Guam Housing team. And during that time, 3 or 4 years ago, we were sitting down and we were just brainstorming of the constituents from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Constituents. The Chamorro Land Trust consists of about 11,000 acres. The Chamorro Land Trust has 10,000 applicants that are in the waiting list since 1995. And the Chamorro Land Trust has issued 2,900 leases. Now, of the 2,900 leases and the 10,000 applicants and the 11,000 acres, we were kind of formulating how, what, when, where, why, and how do we start putting homes in these rural areas. So, of course, to put a development in, it's about $1 million a mile to put in infrastructure. So that being said, I was doing a lot of research, background research on the how to get this program going, and fortunately, I met with Mr. Joe Daegu, and we kind of brainstorm on how to integrate and implement and have a cohesive combination between the federal government, the local government, and the how to provide homes for the constituents. So that being said, I found a news clipping that I was reading that the state director, Mr. Chris Kanazawa, was here about maybe 10 years ago and met with Mr. Monty Mafnas from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And I'm not sure if you recall that meeting. Yes, so the reason why I'm mentioning that program is that I first heard of the SUTA program, the Substantially Underserved Trust area. So that keyword trust, I'm trying to integrate or parallel, is the Chamorro Land Trust eligible for this SUTA program? And when you were here a decade ago, Mr. Kanazawa, did you guys find any components of if the SUTA is applicable to the 11,000 acres and the constituents? And if so, what was the findings at that time between there and today at 2024? That's just one of the questions. I have 2 or 3 other questions, but just for that component, if you can share with the public. Sir, thank you so much.
I recall that when I was here in the prior administration, there were some issues about the eligibility of the trust and the designation of Chamorro lands in terms of whether it had the proper approvals congressionally as well as statewide. But I believe, Joel, we resolved that issue so that I believe now under SUTA that the Chamorro Land Trust would be eligible. Okay, so you would get the benefits of the SUTA designation.
No, and you're right. Again, Dave, Chris was very central in getting Guam and the CNMI designated for SUTA because the enhancements that offers, the rate for a SUTA loan can be down to 2%. There's priority considerations for grants, and it recognizes that it's really what it is, substantially underserved trust area. So yeah, we went through that consultation. We met with the community. So yes, Guam would be eligible for SUTA specifically with the Chamorro Land Trust and even lands outside of Chamorro Land Trust.
Okay, thank you, sir. The other one, I would like to thank you so much for supporting us because we have a tri-party memorandum of understanding that we have just, we're in the process of completing it. So we humbly ask for your support if you can help us ratify that MOU when it comes to your state. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. I got two more, but I'll pass.
We have one question from the virtual participants, but I also know and want to recognize there is a question in the back there, so we can maybe get a mic to the young lady back there in the rose pink shirt. Did you still have a question, man?
Hi, my name is hi, my name is Belinda Snyder. First of all, I want to commend Mr. Dave Ferreira because I spoke with him several times, and his the office of Chamorro Land Trust. They helped me quite a bit. I'm kind of emotional because since 2015, I've been trying to get a house. Nobody helped me in Guam. I went to Gura. It never told me about the the, the Sagan Bonita affordable housing, which I'm sure I probably would have qualified for. It hurts me that how do they pick who's going to get the loan? How do they pick who's going to stay at Gura? I was on Gura's waiting list since 2015. It's a shame. I know you have a lot of positive going here. I appreciate all of you, but why how come I'm not getting help? I am a person with a disability and nobody helped me. I went to Guam Housing and I spoke to those people. I turned in my application. Nobody called me. I followed up. Why am I always not getting help? Now you talk about this 504, you talk about this SUDA. I don't even know what SUDA means. It's an acronym. I don't know what it means. I don't work for GovGuam. I'm on a pension. I fall in the very low category of housing. I am part of the Chamorro Land Trust. Since 1995, I had my property. It's cleared. It has all its points. But nobody reached out to us. The businesses, they get the money. These other people, I don't know how they get into this housing when I've been asking long time. Nobody helped me. The only ones that are helping me right now, I'll be honest with you, is Dave Herrera and his staff, those ladies, Eileen. And that's where the problem is. You cannot just say, I'm going to give to this person. I'm going to give to that person. That's not the way it's supposed to be. I've been in there since 1995, 2015, and yet all these houses are given to other people. Why am I put through the hole? Why didn't anybody reach out for me? And how many times have I gone to Gura on the waiting list? That's why I'm emotional right now, because it's a shame. You can't pick and pull whoever you want. It should be whoever been there first. Finish the people from 1995 on down. Don't go to 2023 because it's election and then give those people. It's again Latsi Hamzu. Pesangonyo. Timalik Badanya. And I'm sorry I'm speaking out, but it's time for me to speak up. And I don't care if I'm in tears. I don't care how you all look at me from here on. But Latsi is the government. Pesangonyo. The only one that's helping me is the Tomorrowland Trust right now. I've been without a house. I'm 59 years old. I'm not done, sir. Please, please don't take the mic because you want the panelists to help. This needs to be said because this is terrible. And then at Gura, that's federal. They should have at least said, Ms. Snyder, we have something coming up, which is called the, what is this thing called? Sagan Bonita Affordable Housing. Ms. Snyder, you can go to this and apply here, and we'll sure you'll get on because you've been on the waiting list, Ms. Snyder, since 2015. Ms. Snyder, you also can go to USDA. The only person that directed me here today is Mr. Herrera. And he should be commended for that because there's a lot of us out there on Tomorrowland Trust that don't even have anything. We don't have a house. So we have to live with someone else. And I'm not ashamed to say it. The Tomorrowland Trust people need the help. We need help. Our land's been cleared. Our land's been surveyed. There's a what do you call that? Power. There's infrastructure, power, water. Why haven't they helped us? Why haven't I been given a house like everybody else? I'm sure I can afford it because you have the 1 point interest, you have this low income, and I fit in this very low income bracket, by the way. And another thing I'd like to mention, if you don't mind, is Social Security a part of income? Because this says your household income is 40,001 to 4 people household for this 504, HRO 504, very low, 40,400 per household. Okay, my question is, does Social Security is part of the income? I don't think so, because Social Security is, you know, it's for disability, right? So how is that going to be my income besides my pension? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate that emotional plea, and we're very sorry that you're going through what you're going through. And as you mentioned, Dave has really been a hero to bringing these services to Tomorrowland Trust. We did have an MOU executed back in 2005, but there was a lawsuit that affected our implementation of our program on Tomorrowland Trust, and it delayed it almost 2 decades, man. I'm really sorry when it comes to legal things. That was a Department of Justice, Gov Guam. That was something that's beyond what we can do. Fast forward to today, as we're speaking, Mr. Herrera, our Guam Housing, our Gura team, we're looking to solve that part of the equation. I apologize it took so long. The Sagan Bonita was done in 2010. I think you were in 2015. We didn't control who was going to reside in those homes. I think it was a private nonprofit developer that had his system to award residents. I think there were over 150 residents that applied for that program, and there was only 56. So back then, the demand for affordable housing was even more so back then. But ma'am, again, we can work on this MOU that we hope to have very soon that would bring a much needed resource to Tomorrowland Trust, not just for housing, but for infrastructure. And it's very reassuring to hear that you already have infrastructure close by. So, you know, you could potentially be one of the initial clients, because that's a challenge right now with most of the Chamorro land trusts is there are no infrastructure. So, you know, if we can get this MOU going, Ms. Snyder, you know, I hope we can work with you to be an early recipient of this. But the key thing is now the willpower under Chamorro Land Trust with Dave's persistence, Guam Housing, we all want to do that with Chamorro Land Trust. So like I said, the resources are there. It took some time. Yes, it did. This Department of Justice lawsuit did delay it 10 years. So we're trying to put together the pieces and get back into helping leasees such as you with realizing that Chamorro dream of home ownership. So I apologize again. It took this long. Very heartfelt. But, you know, I think there's ways we could help you. It just requires a little more time. Did anybody else? Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Would be counted as qualified income. That's what we do for our regular program anyway. So pre-qualification. I mean, we're still getting there. Frankly, we tried to get it done with our here, but we just couldn't get all the pieces together on time. But there is an aggressive approach. The governor has stated this is her intent to bring infrastructure and more housing resources for Chamorro Land Trust. So that's our next best thing, ma'am. So that's all I can tell you right now. I don't know if it's going to be enough to ease the pain and frustration we've gone through for the last almost 10 years. But all I could assure you is that there is light at the end of the tunnel, being that this is the focus of the state housing agency representatives here and with USDA on the housing front. Thank you.
Ms. Schneider, did you have additional questions or did you want to make additional comments? All right, thank you. We also have a question that was posed to us from one of our virtual participants. This is from Governor Ching with the beautiful island of Yap. How can farmers apply to these grants and loans, and who is the main contact? So let me repeat that question. I think this is maybe directed to both Buddy as well as Shirley. The question is, how can farmers apply to these grants, not specifying which grants, and loans, and who is the main contact?
As far as loans are concerned, apply here to the office here in the Guam area. We have an office located here. That would be your first start, or contact us at the state office, and we will take it from there and see how we can get you started on a loan program. So, yeah, FSA, Farm Service Agency, just give us a call. We'll walk you through it.
All right. Thank you, Buddy. Is there any other questions from the audience? Any? Yes. Oh, go ahead.
In terms of if you're looking at the REAP program or the Value Added Producer Grant program, my suggestion is to contact Burley. Burley is back on island. And so what we have done in the past is Burley has been able to coordinate meetings between myself, the applicant, and his office. So your first contact would be with Burley, and he'll be in contact with me. And Burley is the acting area director for the FSM. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. We have another question here from Monica.
Thank you. Do you anticipate any funding for the RISE grants in the near future?
Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything about the RISE program. The program, I'm just not sure what's going to happen. Wait, I think I'm getting confused. I'm sorry. We have so many different programs. So RISE is the Innovation Stronger Economy program you're talking about. Okay, so sorry. So RISE program, unfortunately, is only appropriated $2 million. And so you could imagine the number of applications that are received. I'm not sure. So this current fiscal year, of course, we thought we were accepted. There was a NOFA that went out in terms of the RISE program. And then because of the budget, the RISE program announcement was canceled. I'm not sure what's going to happen for next fiscal year, but I would suggest for your office to be in contact with my office to see what the status is. But as of right now, there is no RISE program fund, should I say. Okay. Okay. So it was a congressional. It was Congress who canceled the RISE program, or the funding, should I say? The funding. Okay. So hopefully, maybe next fiscal year, the program may be around. Yeah, I know.
We have another question again from Mr. Herrera.
Thank you again, everybody. And Ms. Belinda, thank you. I know that's emotional, but I guess that's part of life. We have a lot of hills to climb, but that's where we learn and we become persistent to survive. So my last question is to respectfully request the State Director for Hawaii, Mr. Chris Kanazawa, and for the Administrator of Rural Housing Service, Mr. Hakeem Autoro. Our delegate this morning came in front of us and made an outstanding presentation. In parallel to that, I also understand that the Delegate Moylan introduced a House Resolution number 5445 in the 118th Congress, designating the Guam and the Western Pacific USDA Rural Development Office Act. The act is to establish a office for the Micronesian area, and my respectful question to Mr. Director Kanazawa and Administrator Hakeem Autoro is that can you please share with us your perspective on the plus and minuses of such resolution? Thank you, sir.
Yes, we're aware of the resolution. And we have actually a meeting with Congressman Moylan this afternoon. So that's going to be one of the, I think, discussion topics. As far as establishing a separate office, that's going to require some congressional directive. I can tell you, as we are organized today, under Mr. Diego, with his staff in Guam, in Palau, in the Marshall Islands, he essentially has about 27, almost 30% of our total staff assigned under him. So I believe that we have the resources that are there to service the Western Pacific. I would like to get a better understanding in terms of from Congressman Moylan about where he feels that there may be gaps. But that's something that before I can say whether I support it or not. Quite frankly, it's above my pay grade in terms of making that decision. I believe is above Mr. Arturo's pay grade because this is also a congressionally set, So, but I hear what you're saying. I'm aware of the resolution, and at the end of the day, our interest is to ensure that all of our communities are served.
Yeah, I This, sir, exactly the same. This decision is really deferred to congressional action, and so really appreciate the congressman moving that forward. But again, this is through congressional action itself, and so certain decisions could be made within the purview of us over at USDA, but again, congressional action. I do want to say also, first and foremost, that one of the first things that Joe Diego brought forward when he picked us up from the airport is he spoke to the Chamorro Land Trust. That was like #1 topic that he brought forward, and there's a ton of topics that you already saw that we discussed. Ms. Schneider, I just have to say is that I appreciate your vulnerability, and I feel that you are probably the most bold person, the most bold person in this room. You provide the reason as to why we do the work that we do. And I ask respectfully for you to never silence yourself and continue to share your story, because these are the reasons why we have to do better. Did you notice up there that, but for the work that we do, like, we're going to sit here and raise a flag and say all the wonderful things we do because it's important. If I took an eraser and erased everything that's been done, imagine where we would be. It wouldn't be just Ms. Schneider. It'd be tens of thousands of Ms. Schneiders that would be in your position. So I'm deeply in respect for the work that USDA has done, that RD has done, that Joe Diego has done. But the one thing I want to make sure that you notice that I said, because I meant it, and I meant it with the deepest amount of emotion, is that we still have a lot of more work to do. And so I ask you respectfully, emotionally, because I'm getting a little emotional because I was raised by a single mother that had a job, and still we were almost one paycheck away from homelessness. And so I ask you not to silence yourself, to continue to share your story, because it's gotta hurt. Housing is not an easy topic. We don't celebrate wins all the time. Housing should hurt. Emotions should come around housing, and we should realize why it's so important that we're here and we're sharing, and what we have to work harder. And so I give you a virtual hug, a hug from across the room. I know that's not going to help you with your issues, but I want to tell you that I hear you, I empathize with you, and I will take your story once again back to DC and explain to them why housing not only is the potential of happiness and love, but it also hurts. And so I thank you, Ms. Schneider, for your story.
Thank you, Administrator. Are there any other questions? Anything on our business programs, our community facility programs? We've heard a lot about housing. Is there any other questions? None? Well, again, we'd like to thank our panelists, of course, our State Director, Chris Kanazawa, and our Program Administrator, Mr. Joaquin Toro. Thank you all very much. But before we close, I know we were able to put faces to names that we had shared with you about. I'd also like to recognize some of our Guam staff that are here around with us, because we are the people that you're going to try to communicate with to try to get access to our programs. We have Ms. Bernie Belahaja back here in the room here. Bernie is probably one of our longest serving USDA employees in our Guam office. So thank you, Bernie. And then on the opposite end of the room, we have Ms. Christine Blas. Thank you, Christine. And the wonderful lady who greeted you at the entrance as you were registering is Christine Sablan. So again, just want to thank the entire Guam staff. And we also want to recognize one of our local partners, Doreen Rivera, who's with the Farm Service Agency. All right. So again, thank you very much. Thank you, the University of Guam. And Chris, did you want to give some closing remarks?
I just wanted to echo Tony's thank you. As the administrator says, this is just the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of work that we have to do. And it's important that everybody understands that while rural development has a broad menu of programs, our success relies heavily on partnerships, whether it be for nonprofits, whether it be for universities, whether it be for other organizations, whether it be for the local government. I mean, our programs are far more effective when we can partner with the community. So all of you, I'm asking for your help, your support, because I think with leveraging each other's resources, we can be far greater reach into the communities. So as I said, this is not the end of our discussions. This is really the beginning. We have staff here locally. We have staff based in Hawaii, all here to serve all of you. So I appreciate all the time that you've spent here. And, you know, as the administrator says, you know, we hear you. And, you know, we're doing our best to weed through and make the federal process as painless as possible. But I think it's important that you understand that you're essential partners with us. And I just want to thank you all for your commitment. The fact that you're here indicates the importance of this. And I want to just appreciate everything you've done and look forward to continue our relationship. So thank you. Aloha.
So in our tradition, Biba Guam, Biba.